Welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 217. Hey, guys.
Hi.
I'm here with Josh and Justin.
Yes, you are.
Chilling in the Astronomicon. And this episode, we are going to be talking about, actually, it's a new series that we're starting, kind of akin to our Show of Force episodes, but this one is focused around Necromunda. And our first gang right out of the starting gate is the House of Chains, or House Goliath.
The brutes.
Yeah,
The big boys.
That's right. So we're going to be going in deep on House Goliath, but we've got a few things to talk about before we kick off the rest of the show. So we're going to be talking about that. We've got a couple quick announcements. The first thing coming up is fairly soon, we are going to be doing a raffle for some of our friend Doug's incredibly well painted,
really well painted,
Beautiful
armies.
Yeah.
And the reason we're doing this is because, the money will all go towards helping his kids and their education. And they are, like his Imperial Guard army was Doug's love.
Yeah.
And
No
his,
doubt,
and his
yeah.
passion. And man, he knows how to paint that stuff. And it is a massive army. And
So many tanks.
a straight sale would probably not, it'd be the rare individual that could buy that straight out of the, for what it's worth. And so we feel that we will probably raise more money if we offer up tickets at $5 a ticket or something to that effect, which will go towards his kids' education and such there, but also give you the opportunity and the chance to win that army, which if you won that army for $5 or even $20,
yeah, that's a good day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
there'll be some stipulations around that. Like if I have to ship it to Europe or something, like we'll pay a certain amount of the shipping cost, but you'll be responsible for the rest. But we'll figure it out. Expect that in the next episode or two is where we'll start kicking that off. And by the way, it's not just an Imperial Guard army. It's also the start of a beautiful Space Marine army.
Really well painted. I had no idea.
Sons of Medusa, if I'm recalling. Yep.
Yeah,
That
it was
super vibrant green, amazingly well painted.
freaking awesome.
Gene Stealer
Gene Stealer
Colts.
Colt.
Yeah, we're buying that.
Oh,
Shell and I are buying that.
good.
Shell wants them.
That amazing army
Yeah.
also.
And we're also buying his Tau army. So, because I just wanted something of Doug's
Yeah.
for me personally. And so I'm donating money for that one. But he also has a Grey Knight army. I had no idea he has a huge Orc army. Like I had no idea he had all these armies. He's got an Auric army for Age of Sigmar. And here's one of the coolest parts about it. So I've been helping out the family. I've been going through all this stuff. For those who are just joining, our very good friend Doug passed away a little over a month ago, unexpectedly. And as I was going through all this stuff and like packing, okay, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with that? I came across a little like recipe box. I opened it up and he has documented the paint scheme for every one of these
wow.
armies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you buy the army, we can tell you exactly what paints were used to paint it, and that can help you moving forward too. if you
Yeah.
want to add
Bonus.
more. So anyway, that's coming up. It's been a kind of year of tragedy for the independent characters, and I laugh about that. But Justin, you had a very unexpected thing happen recently, as we posted on. For those people who are on our Facebook group are aware.
yes.
Why don't you explain a little bit about what happened to you the other night?
So it's been a trial and tribulation filled last 3 to 4 years for me. Between separations and losing friends and all. It's just like the pandemic.
Just
and,
never stops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just less than 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, it seems like it's longer. I awoke at 1 a.m. to a smoke detector going off and ran outside to see that backyard corner of my house was on fire, which is a terrifying thing to wake up to.
Right.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
And your son was in the house, and your roommate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Son, roommate, we're all just fast asleep. And thankfully, I woke up, ran out, and I looked at my garden hose. I looked at the fire. Looked at my garden hose. Looked at the fire. I said, "Nope." So got the kid out. Got the roommate out. My cat was an inside cat, so he was already out that night. But yeah, got everybody out and just sat across the street holding my child, watching my house burn. Now, thankfully, the firefighters I live blocks away from.
Yeah, we are very close. It should be mentioned you live about a mile from me, like just down the hill.
Yeah, super close. Yep. So, cops arrived first, because I live in a duplex, so got my neighbor out safely. I went to go start knocking on his door, and the cops had arrived, and they're just banging on it, get out, get out.
Yeah.
Moments later, the fire department arrived, and thankfully they were able to contain most of the fire to the attic, so because I just watched as it spread through the roof and watched them chainsaw the thing open, and were visited by a dire wolf.
Yep.
In our time of need.
Space wolf in there.
Yeah, seeing those photos of just like your ceiling and all the tiles or drywall or just had melted and fallen out. But
the whole attic is just melted away. The roof's melted away, and they had to poke everything. So all my furniture, everything's just mostly ruined. But the Emperor protects.
Yeah.
Now, where the fire started too was in the corner where it's like a big great room, and my little corner desk studio was right there. And even I had a figure cabinet that was right to the right of it with like all my Ideneth Deepkin, my Pandemic Army, and a bunch of really nicely painted stuff. And the firefighters, they're like dragging that out, as the fire's burning and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's safe.
They're the real heroes.
They're real heroes. Yeah. Like, sir, is there anything else we can get? I'm like, to hell with the speakers, to hell with the TVs, save the models, save the models.
When you think about how much time and effort and everything went into that, like it is a bigger investment than something you can just go and buy and replace.
It took me a pandemic to finish that Ideneth Deepkin army.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you saw the pictures online, you can see Justin in the middle of it. Like, to say it was contained to the attic is not doing it justice.
No,
the thing you said to me was, you were like, I was shocked at how fast it spread.
Oh,
yeah.
And I've never been in a fire, so like I couldn't tell you. But when I went in afterwards, you and I went in, we were working with your girlfriend and your roommate to pack up what survived.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the house, I've never seen a house so destroyed.
Yeah, everything just that was up above came down, and they spray that whatever soapy foam stuff all
it was
over
still
everything.
Foamy
So
and wet everywhere.
While it was burning, I remember the firefighter, they took my like big 65-inch Panasonic off my TV off the wall.
Dude.
And I'm like, I think it's done. Thank you though. But my garage is where most of my miniatures, I had 8 IKEA cabinets full of miniatures, and they were able to vent everything out and prevent that from burning down. So
how crazy is that? I mean, first off, the fact
even
that
my well of opportunity, all my stuff that's not all on a big rack didn't catch fire.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, how crazy is it that they're trying to save your stuff?
It's not. I think it was also once the fire was out.
Oh, okay.
Right? They're not in there
it's not like the flames are coming up.
And they're like, dude, can I save your speaker? No. It was like
Okay.
they contained it to the attic. They vented it out. Once they chainsawed the roof open, you saw this Sauron gout of flames erupt out.
That's a visual.
And then after that, even that night, which I've never experienced time moving so quickly in my life, because it happened around 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And when all was said and done, I looked down, I'm like, oh my God, it's 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was just surreal, but it could have been a lot worse. I was able to save my passport, my wallet, my keys.
Yeah.
My car wasn't damaged.
Your kid and yourself.
Well,
Yeah,
obviously, that goes without saying. But when it comes to personal belongings, even family photos, So anyways, super scary to go through, but nobody was hurt. And the support from so far has been awesome.
Yeah. So there is a GoFundMe to help you out a little bit, because you did lose quite a bit of stuff.
All my furniture.
We have, I'll make sure the link is in the show notes if you guys are interested in helping out a little bit. A bunch of people from Facebook have helped out, and we'll talk a little bit more of that in the Elite Choice as well. But I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you and the kid are safe.
And I'm glad you've been able to take this refugee and my son in for a few weeks. It's been awesome, dude.
I think the thing that this year has taught me, and the last year has taught me, is friends are so important. Mm-hmm. And in particular, the passing of Doug made me just appreciate you guys so much more. And I think it's kind of bonded the group even tighter together. The people are, I think we can take for granted sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
And life's too short.
Yep.
Too short.
Way too short. Yep.
Yeah. So
we're gonna all get through this a-okay and be stronger on the other side. But definitely, I just need a year with like no tragedies. Is that? Can I get a solid 365 days of
done?
You know,
glad you guys are okay, but yeah, let's have a quiet year.
So let's move on to Elite Choice.
Okay.
All right, because we were talking about how much we actually like this segment before we started recording, and I'm going to start. And because it's in keeping also with Necromunda, I wanted to mention Brett Barker and his Redemptionists.
Again?
That he has put on the terrain that we talked about that he's painted as well. This guy,
that amazing table. He's on a roll, man.
Listen, if he keeps it up, we may have a new addition to the what do we call it, Hall of Champions.
Hall of Champions.
If he finishes his Dalak gang that he's working on by next episode, then that's his 3. He's out.
And we can't ever mention.
Is that the new golden rule? It's 3 in your end.
It's flexible. It depends on
flexible.
It depends on what you've gotten recommended for and that kind of thing. But man, there's some legends in the Hall of Legends there.
There are.
And it was not intentional that I picked him again. This was the thing that sprung out to me, and I really like the way they look.
Yeah,
and
well deserved.
So yeah, congratulations, Brett. And I am jealous of your table. Like I own the original Zone Mortalis stuff, and I own a ton of it. And Brian Harvey painted it up for me. It looks amazing. Yep. Man, you've knocked out of the park. This is Forge World display level stuff.
It really is.
The decals. But then just to speak to the Redemptionists themselves, he did an amazing job, but they are a really fun gang. Like they've got chainsaws and flamers and like flames shooting out of backpacks, and
I want to play against this army.
You guys know the range better than I do.
Built, so I will.
Oh, perfect.
They're next on deck for the army that I'm.
Are there conversions in there, or is that all pretty stock?
That is mostly stock to the kit. Yeah.
Regardless, really beautiful. Love the reds.
Yeah.
Josh, who did you pick?
So I picked Ted Lidgard, and he has been working off and on doing some test schemes for an Imperial Guard army. And I think he's finally landed on a direction, but yeah, the just level of detail he's put into just stock line base troops is phenomenal. Yeah. Like it is incredible how well executed every model that he's shown here.
Looks great.
And it's just the start of it, but just the detail's phenomenal. The execution is amazing.
Those models have a lot of detail on them. And like somebody earlier had posted a test model for Tyranids that I thought looked really, really good. I was like, cool. Can you now do 1,000 of them?
Right.
Because and the number's a bit exaggerated, but when I painted my Tyranids initially, like that was an exhausting trial.
Yeah. That was going to be my comment is how many of these can he paint before he wants to put a last gun to his temple?
Move on to tanks pretty quickly.
There you go.
We'll see.
And you have a lot you can bounce back and forth.
There's a lot of options in an Imperial Guard army. But it's like it's a really nice kind of mix of kind of modern warfare and sci-fi at the same time. Yeah. Just the execution's phenomenal. So definitely had to call it out there. So
great job, Ted.
Yeah, well done, Ted.
All right. And Justin.
All right, so I'll just piggyback off that real quick because I also picked Ted Lidgard.
Oh,
which I didn't realize until right now.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Two call outs on the same episode.
Okay, that only counts as one though. Yeah. Holy smokes, I did not realize.
I didn't realize that either until that name looks familiar. So Ted, congratulations, man.
Speaking of well executed Imperial Guard,
dude.
And dude, just the everything is so good on that tank, from the weathering. The weathering is what stood out to me, and just like the mud on the tracks, the chip damage.
This is the kind of stuff Doug would do, though.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe in the back of my mind too, I was channeling a little bit of Doug.
That's what
peace and love, bro.
Reminded me of just the attention and detail that Doug put into it with his giant antennas. And just little pieces of personality.
Yep.
Just really, really well painted tank, man. Good job. Can't wait to see that army done in 15 years. Good luck.
Oh man, if you got 2 in one episode though, who knows? Maybe
that might be some serious fuel to the fire.
You have a runner up too.
So I do have a runner up, which I should have mentioned first, but either way, he's getting mentioned. Aske Emil Bregendahl. He organized a fundraising event for me without me asking. He just all of a sudden he had hit me up like a week or two before saying like, hey,
good.
Can you give me a bunch of pictures of your miniatures for some reason he likes my work and he wanted to kind of do
I don't know why.
like a little shout out kind of thing on Instagram, and I got busy and I was like, oh, I'll get you the pictures tomorrow. And then my house burned down. But in the meantime, he organized a little fundraising event, which is funny. He's like, hey dude, you donate $10 and he's going to go sleeveless for a week. And for every $1, he's going to do a push-up. And I want to say he's up to like $600 or something. So
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
that's a lot of sleeves gone. That's a lot of push-ups. So thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to kick off the show with a little bit of Workbench, Hobby Progress, and Justin has no excuses.
Yeah.
All right, and we're back. Let's kick it off. A little bit of Hobby Progress. Justin, what excuse have you got this time?
Fire bad.
Yeah, right.
My Hobby Progress was saving my hobby from immolation.
Yeah.
Does that count?
No, you know what?
That's a worthy goal.
I think that might be the best Hobby Progress of all.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend got to see the shame that was.
Oh, man.
She's like,
It
bro.
was funny. She had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. And we were like, no.
Like she had seen my garage, but she hadn't really seen my garage.
Was that of your closet of opportunity or just the
entire-
painted
the-
stuff coming out?
just the
entire
painted
collection?
armies?
Yeah,
Just
just everything on display.
I mean, I went to
right there.
Walmart and got like, 8 big Tupperware things, and she's like delicately putting them in. And at first she's like, okay, I'm helping. And then after a while, she's like, oh my God. So anyways, yeah.
I got to tell you, the first thing I thought was, oh no, Justin's armies. And
You're not the first person who said that.
no,
Oddly enough.
and going back to that topic, I remember I was telling my boss about it. And I'm like, oh, my buddy's house, he lives a mile away, burned down. He's staying over here now. And she's like, okay. And I go, yeah, but, all his, I go, I know you're going to laugh, but I go, all his Warhammer stuff for the most part's okay. And she just kind of rolls her eyes. And I go, listen, I go, you don't understand.
There's
like,
so much time investment.
this stuff
in there.
is time investment. There's things that are no longer available. They're collector's items. And then I go, imagine if all your Disney stuff burned to the ground, because she buys all this Disney stuff, and not just like the stuff you can buy, like she
The hard to get.
auctions for the original sign that sit up front of the Haunted Mansion, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
It's
right,
like,
right.
Yeah.
and she goes, oh, okay, I get it. And I'm like, there you go.
And that was just her spending the time to search for it, not like the,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
She didn't paint the Haunted Mansion sign.
And I saved my Les Paul, my Gibson lives. I'm like,
Nice.
that's all I need
Oh,
to do. I
man.
got my miniatures, I got my Gibson.
Now you just eventually you're going to learn to play.
Yeah, that's it, man.
The band's going to make
I
it.
just buy guitars. I don't play them. It's
All
hobby
right.
progress.
Josh, how about you?
I didn't do anything either.
Did your house burned down?
No, I did a lot.
Knock on wood.
Dude.
Yeah, no, yeah.
That's not a joking matter at this point.
No. With all the rain we've had this year, there's going to be some fires. So the first thing I did was finish my Delac models that I've been working on, which was the Nakgul and the Paiskia Inspector. They were, I don't know, probably 85% done as of the last episode, but I wanted to get those finished so I could get them in a game, get them played on a game, which I will talk about when we get the games played. But they turned out really well. Love both those models. The lore on the Paiskia Inspector, I wasn't super familiar with it before. Well, basically, it's a native Necromundan alien species that has a psychic connection
That's
with
the big head one.
It's like the floating octopus.
Yeah.
So the 4-armed floating brain with mechanical bits mixed in, which is super fun. Love the way it turned out, and it was really fun to play with on the table, as we'll get to.
Cool.
So that's the first part. Then I also noticed that I had only 3 models left of my Delac to just be done with everything that I have for that. I've got about 25 models for it. So there's 3 more that I had unassembled. So I took the opportunity to build those last 3 models, which are 2 Psygeist, which is a Delac specific kind of psychic ganger.
Yeah.
And then a guy with a melt-a-gun just for ash waste with vehicles and things like that. It's good to have a melt-a-gun in your gang as an option to hit something hard.
right.
So got those built, got them built, primed, and did the zenithal highlights on those, so they're almost ready for painting. So
Got it.
get those going soon. I got a rad gift from Anthony out of G3 up in Chico. He sent me and Brian a box. Had no idea what it was going to be, and then I opened it up, and it was custom decals that he had made, which are G3 specific. So it's the G3 logo that he had made in decal form. So I'll put those on a couple of Titans going forward.
And G3 is what for those?
That's the Gothamos Gaming Group out of Chico.
Which your old gaming group.
The old gaming group that me and Scott started the Santa Cruz chapter of. So there's kind of a lot of history in there. But the highlight of the box for me was there was an actual metal Titanicus coin. That's the Opus Titanicus on one side and the G3 logo on the other side.
Nice.
So you can use that for determining first player, marking first player in the games. But it's an actual gold coin that just really well done. And it was just a super fun little surprise in the mail to get. So thanks, Anthony. That's awesome. Really appreciate that. And looking forward to using. Actually, me and Brian already used that in a game, and I'll talk about that when we get there. I've also been working on a corrupted Reaver Titan for Titanicus. Mm-hmm. So I play a Trader Legio, or I'm playing my Legio as Trader. And one of the fun options you have in there is you can actually make corrupted Titans, which are, there's a variety of options to choose from that are all very thematic of this one's rage based, this one's more warp based, things like that. So I'm doing basically a double melee Reaver Titan that just wants to get up there and smash. So it's been a lot of fun working on that one. I'll probably have it finished. It's 90% painted.
Wow. All right.
You're an animal.
So I'll probably have that one painted when we record next. So definitely
All right.
check out the green screen for that. Picked up Bolt Gun, which the video game, it's the Doom
I grabbed it as
inspired skin, or it's a 40K skin of Doom basically, and it's same graphics style of like 90s Doom.
Yeah.
Which is fun. It's been fun. I've played probably the first 4 levels or so of that, and it's just kind of hit that first person shooter nostalgia, but the 40K skin on that, or how they've done it, I think fits pretty well.
Yeah.
Which is fun with the Kill a Pink Horror. It splits into 2 blue horrors.
That was the thing.
That.
Justin was watching me, and I'm like, "Oh, it's Pink Horror. Let's see if it splits."
It does, yeah. Which is it's fun. So it's
brought back some memories, man. I was sitting there watching him play. I'm like, oh yeah, that's where it started.
It's a low barrier commitment. It's just been fun, and it was on sale for like $18 or something like that. Yeah. So it was good for that. And then last but not least, Warcry. Yes, it's happening. After talking to Justin and a couple other people, I did purchase the Askurgan Blade Lords, True Blades. They're the samurai vampires. The bottom built them, primed them, base coated, so I'll actually be ready to get a game in pretty soon.
Nice.
And the one thing I don't have on my notes here is I did finish painting the 3D printed nameplates for all my Titans. That
you mentioned
talked
that
about
to me.
last episode. Yeah,
You mentioned that to me. You said they were coming along pretty good.
yeah. So
Those look so good.
Since the picture I sent you, I did a brighter gold to pop the actual names of them, and then I did an oil wash just to tone down the background so they'll stand out a little bit more.
Nice.
So now I just got to put them on the Titans. They look really good, and I'll get a couple group shots going once I actually attach them to the bases.
Join the call-in
Yeah.
train.
Which on Titans, they're awesome on Titans.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
it's perfect for Titans.
On the board at a time, you have like 6 models, so each one deserves its name.
Bolt Gun as well here. Like obviously, I downloaded it, played it a little bit. It, like you said, it's low investment. I've played maybe 2 hours, which I should have used painting instead. But helped Justin out a bit. Yeah. We moved a bunch of his stuff into my garage for the time being, but that took up a bunch of time. Plus, we had Doug's kids here for a week, so we've been taking care of them for a little bit. So made some progress on my Ash Waste Nomads, though. Didn't set aside enough time with them, but I did make some progress there. They'll be done by next time. I just kind of lost momentum there. I organized, and so I had put up a poll about which army should I do, Sisters, Black Legion, Tyranids.
Yep.
In some ways, I'm kind of disappointed Tyranids didn't win because, man, those models look good.
My answer was follow your heart, Carl.
I am, and my heart is black, as black as the Legion. So, I'm gonna get back to my Black Legion. So I actually, they had been in my like working tray. Like I have a large black tray that I set everything in that I'm working on, and they'd been sitting in there for so long. We had dust and stuff all over them, so I had to go through and dust them off with a soft brush and spray air on them to get them. So I got them prepped. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with the units, so I can.
Well, you might as well wait for the
How
index.
do I build the army to decide? Okay, these are what I'm going to work on in this order. I'm clearly going to need some
basic Chaos Marines.
Basic Chaos Marines.
Right.
So I'll start plugging away at them. They're like half started already. So I've done a lot of the edging on them already. So I just need to fill in a lot of the detail work and that kind of thing. I did paint a squad of Terminators those up a while ago, and I was very happy with the results. So if I follow that pattern, I'm going to be very happy with the army. So, and originally that army had Be'lakor in it as well.
Yeah.
So I need to see like what does that look like? I love that model. Yeah. Can I even take him and have him as part of that model? And I have I'm trying to think of the name of the company that was doing the monster.
Creature Caster.
Creature Caster. I have a Creature Caster version of him.
Love their stuff,
which is great. And then GW put out the Be'lakor
That new Be'lakor model.
And I was just like,
phenomenal.
Oh my God. So I have not picked him up yet, but if I can include him, I will pick up the Be'lakor model.
Nice. Yeah. Do you remember your paint recipe for that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Not like Doug, like I didn't write it down, but actually that's not true. I did. It's on a notepad on my computer. So, very, very easy to do. But yeah. So anyway, so I will be focusing on Black Legion as my first army. I'm going to get it up to, I don't know, whatever points people are playing, with the new edition. I'm sure it's going to be,
I think 2000 standard now.
Probably.
Yep.
So I will get it up to that. We were talking a little bit about, side note, we were talking a little bit about the units that have come out and that Screamer Killer.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see how they tackle points in 10th. Are we going to see an increase, or like, is a Marine going to be 15 points or like 10? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I'm really, and so much is dependent upon, okay, what comes out. Right. So, hence why we're doing Necromunda right now, because it's like, well, everybody and their mother's probably talking about 10th edition.
They are.
We are going to at some point, but it's really going to be more organic than like 10th edition coverage or whatever. But speaking of 10th edition, I did order the Leviathan box set through Herrick Games. Josh and I decided to split it some time ago. I want the Tyranids out of it in the rule book, and Josh wants the Space Marines. And as I was saying, I've seen like a lot of the influencer coverage of the models and this kind of thing. we don't get that anymore here since we stopped 2 years ago. But that's fine. Whatever. What I was impressed with was those Space Marine models, though.
The sculpts are pretty impressive.
God, they're so beautiful. I wish I loved playing Space Marines more. But
I really appreciate how they kept the Terminators the same style, just made them bigger.
Just bigger. Freaking cool looking. And you know what that speaks to? Again, the original plan here was this is a 10-year retirement of the old Marines. That was the original plan. Who knows what has happened at this point. 10-year retirement. So it makes sense that we're seeing Terminators just upscaled. Yeah. Right. And I think eventually what you're going to see is the, what do they call the older Marines now? The
Firstborn.
Yeah. I think you're just to see them eventually disappear.
We already are, which I talked about a little bit last episode, but the Stern Guard unit in the Leviathan box was a Firstborn unit, and now
it's just a Stern Guard
It's
unit.
Primaris sized, and there's no more Primaris keyword. Like Primaris keyword is gone. Now it's just you're a Marine.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's going that direction, and I think it makes sense, and it's fine. And actually, to be honest with you, I think the Primaris scale is way more fun to paint too.
Yeah.
And just looks way better.
And I cannot wait for like jump pack Marines and stuff, because that was always my favorite. Anyway, maybe I'll play Marines then. Anyway,
you sounded pretty excited about Marines there.
You'll enjoy killing them, Carl.
Well, you know why I'm focused on it is just because they were so good looking. Like I looked at it and I was just like, oh man, why are they so good looking?
Just start with a kill team, man.
No, I got a kill team. I'm good.
That's how they get you.
I'm good. I got a kill team. I need to get up to a combat patrol.
I'm really intrigued to see how that works out with like just
I'm very curious.
Buy a box and it has all these cool custom rules.
Well, I think not only that is what I'm going to do, especially for my Black Legion, is first build the combat patrol. I've actually got them all built. To
might as well
paint to the combat patrol, then paint to the.
Maybe I'll join you in that.
Yeah.
And Leviathan, they specifically called out that Leviathan is 2 combat patrols.
Yes.
So it's a Marine combat patrol and a Tyranid combat patrol. So if you want to try out combat patrol with one of their bespoke set armies, your Tyranids that you're getting out of the box are ready to go for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's like they got this all figured out.
Yeah.
I know it's all clicking. The other thing, though, since we're talking purchases, that I was lucky to get a copy of from Herrick as well was the Kill Team Ashes of Faith set,
Oh, yes.
which sold out super fast.
Blanchitsu in a box.
Oh my God!
Those
Which one is this again?
It has all the inquisitorial stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
It looks so good. I was like,
Blanchitsu in a box.
I was so bummed that it had like sold out. I was like, oh man, that would have been great. Well, the models will come out eventually. And then I reached out to Sky and I was like, oh, I really want to sing. He's like, I've got an extra box. I'm like, dude, I will take it. I will take it right now.
Who's the enemy in that one again? It's Inquisition versus...
It's mutants. It's some sort of chaos.
Oh,
mutants.
yeah. It's all like the cultists. And
But it's like the...
Yes.
And there's actually rules for like them mutating and changing during the game from what I've heard.
But I'm mostly excited for the inquisitorial stuff.
I will 100% pick up that box when it's just the inquisitorial henchman box.
Yep.
A lot of those models are right out of Inquisitor too. When that came out, there was the art, like John Blanche's art in that book, and even some of the models are.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Godspeed. He just retired.
Yeah,
man.
Congratulations. Man.
What
Talk
a
about
legacy
career.
he's left behind.
Total legacy. Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, we've seen the art shift in 40K over the years, but man, his stuff has always been so evocative. It's just, it's incredible. And then last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, I've spent a bunch of time going through Doug's stuff and packing it up and itemizing it and trying to figure out, okay, how do we recover the most of this for his wife and kids, and that has taken quite a bit of time too. So the half of my garage that is filled with Justin's stuff, the other half is filled with Doug's stuff, and so
What a champion! What a hobby champion you are!
What a Warhammer hero!
What a Warhammer hero! That's the one.
You should get a medal.
I have. What?
And a framed. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Even is the spotlight on it? Okay. Yeah.
No,
so
it's on you,
that's
man.
me. Let's talk hobby goals and promises. Justin.
Fire bad. Okay. But I will find. My goal right now is to find a house.
That's a good goal.
A roof, just a regular roof over my head.
Did you lose your compressor?
They're in this like pile of nonsense.
Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't.
Kat and Caleb already reached out. They're like, dude,
okay,
don't worry.
Okay, good. Josh.
So first on my docket is finish that Crypto Titan because it is so close. I really want to get this thing over the finish line. I've almost painted everything. I have two of the shin pads left to do some checkered stripes on, and then oil wash of it, and that thing is done and dialed. So that's first up. Then I want to finish my Direwolf Titan, which is I've got the neutron laser Titan.
That's the one we fought against.
Everybody has one right now,
right?
and everybody has fielded them in the last.
You know who doesn't have one? This guy.
You do not yet. You will get one. I've played against, I don't know, probably 12 of my last 15 games have had direwolves in them.
Yeah.
I have not fielded one yet because I haven't painted mine. So I'm like,
it's a crutch, Josh.
It is a crutch, which is why I haven't painted it. But I'm coming to the end of my Titanicus models left to need paint applied to them. So it's
you know what's better than the direwolf? 2 direwolves.
I don't think you need.
I'm kidding.
And it actually doesn't work in the game.
No, it doesn't work very well.
Yep. So after that, as I mentioned earlier, the last 3 Deloc models that I had built and got the Zenithal going, like just get paint on them. It's 3 individual models. They paint up so quick. The True Blades for Warcry, I would love to get those painted up to actually play a game with them.
Yeah.
Which it's 8 models for the.
Yeah, it shouldn't take very long.
No, they're going to go quick. So looking forward to that. And then similar to what you were just talking about with Black Legion, I do really want to start prioritizing the Primaris contingent of the Sharkadons and where to go with that, but I am kind of waiting for the index to drop and see how I want to prioritize that build and what makes sense for that kind of force.
Yeah.
Probably start with a boarding action, 500 point.
I think that's the
force,
smart move,
and
right?
then jump into the.
That way you're playing right away with it.
Yeah, expand from there. And I have so much stuff that army is playable. They're just small Marines and Terminators. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, anyways, that's.
I've got about 1,000 Minotaurs.
Yeah,
over
right.
there.
You've got a few,
and all of them are old, except for the ones I've briefly painted up. I'm going to finish my Ash Wastes, guys, just to get them off my hobby bench. I'm not even going to be playing them anytime soon, especially, in whatever Necromunda campaign you're going to run. I'm going to stick with my Goliath guys for the time being.
Yeah, we're going to go Underhive until all the gangs have their bespoke vehicles. I'm going to hold off on Ashways.
There you go. And then, I already mentioned the waiting for 10th edition of prioritized Black Legion stuff. And then I'm going to complete prepping my Dark Heresy game for the Patreon that we're going to eventually launch. I'm thinking maybe end of June-ish. We'll see where it goes. But that that role-playing game will record, and we will release in segments over a given period of time. But
super looking forward to playing that.
Yeah, and I think I talked to John about it, and he's super excited to talk to me about it too. So should be good stuff. Sweet. So, all right, let's talk games played. And Justin, Fire bad.
Okay. But I will say, like, no games played, but I have been watching a lot of YouTube on 10th.
I'm not like
I drive for a living,
yeah.
You know, so I'm just like, let's
watch something while I drive.
Listen. Right? I don't need to look at the data slate. I'll put YouTube on, drive around.
I thought you were gonna say I don't need to look at the traffic.
I don't need to look at the road. No. I got YouTube.
No. So, but yeah, I've just been getting little tidbits from different, Art of War guys and all the other dudes out there just talking about, different factions and little tidbits of the rules.
Yeah, I did see that they've had some of the designers come on and talk to, some of the YouTubers out there, which has been kind of nice. I was hoping they would have done that, a couple years ago. I've been able to talk to some of them, but not like have it recorded, but I think that's great. I think that's great stuff.
Just continued evolution.
And I mean, the rules are officially out now.
Yeah.
Like they dropped them out, so it's been cool just to, might as well drive around and listen to how morale works and get a heads up. Little heads up.
Yeah.
Get that competitive edge.
Man, I'm getting fired up, man. I'm so ready to play 40K again. It's been a while.
Time,
dude.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
So for me, I'll go to you last, Josh, because you got the most. Nothing 40K related. My kid and I, my kid goes to the University of Washington. We play in a weekly Dungeons and Dragons game run by Travis, Travis, Ed, and Blake, who Ed and Blake used to be Life After the Cover Save. They've shuttered that door, but they have a D&D podcast called TSR that they do. It's a live play thing. Travis has been our DM for an online game involving myself, my kid Aaron, Tom, Steve, and Lars. And Lars has moved away, so it's nice to have that online presence. But twice now we have flown down to Travis's house and played in person for like an entire day. And it just makes me realize just how much I love role-playing games and how much I've missed playing them in person. That's why I'm excited about the Dark Heresy thing too, because we're going to play in person really intense for, a couple days. And so we flew down there, we finished our campaign. Lars started the new one. It was an absolute blast. And Travis had taken, here's kind of a miniature adjacent piece that I want to share is, so in Dungeons and Dragons, when you're in a fight, you're usually on a map that is squares, and those squares are 5 feet, 5-foot squares in the game. Mm-hmm. And so we all brought miniatures down. Travis had asked in advance, hey, when you're done painting your miniatures, can you send me pictures of them? I'm working on something. I said, okay. So we sent him pictures. I painted up Jody 3D printed my kids, and I painted that one up. And we get down there, and Travis has this dungeon laid out at one point, and Lars goes, oh no, the scale on this is every square is 10 feet and instead of 5 feet, right? So the models are incorrect size for the scale of
they're huge
rooms and stuff. And Travis goes, oh no, you're right. He goes, what are we going to do? And then he pulls out these 10 millimeter figures that he had painted in the same color of our figures. Yeah. And they were close, but not exact, but close enough. And they were painted our colors. And so you basically had 4 per 10 foot, right? So we were able to use these little 10 millimeter figures he had for the whole game. It was really funny. Like Lars couldn't have opened the door more for that joke to play out for Travis. And so Travis really pulled out all the stops. Like he had painted up a bunch of different miniatures for the game, and Travis is a great painter.
Yeah, he's a great painter.
Nice.
He is a great painter. Like he's painted tons of 40K stuff, Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff, and his Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff looks real good.
Really good.
Cool.
And and so he had painted up like a Frost Giant. Last time he'd painted up like this kind of giant mechanical dragon. He painted up the giant Yetis and all this stuff, and it was a great time. It makes me remember how much I love role-playing games, and in particular, the camaraderie of playing with somebody in person, which is, again, why I'm looking so forward to 10th edition to begin playing with people. I mean, we play board games a lot, and I'm enjoying that, but I really do enjoy 40K, and I really do enjoy role-playing games. So
there's so much more just interaction compared to a lot of board games, too.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome into the game, into the campaign, and it was an awesome time to travel down there and get to spend time with my kid. And San Diego airport sucks. It's horrible. It's horrible flying in and out of. So there you go. So that was me. Josh, let's talk about actual 40K stuff now.
Well, the first thing I'm going to talk about is not 40K. But,
See, I just saw that on the note.
So after last episode, I took a page out of Jody's book and actually kicked off a Hero Quest campaign using the new box, and it has the app-driven system to play Zargon, so you can play it 2-player and have the app take care of all the bad guy
Zargon
movements and
memories,
placements and things like that. Which worked out pretty well. It was fun.
How does the app work? Does it work pretty good?
It works well.
That's cool.
The one clunky thing, which it was just getting used to it, is you basically have to tell it where you've moved.
Yeah.
And we would either tell the app where we've moved and then not actually move our physical figure on the board because
now you're just working through the app.
It's like, oh wait, you got to catch up.
Yeah.
The only one clunky thing was after we had cleared the final boss of the first level, you have to get to the exit, which you always you exit the dungeon in there.
Yeah.
And in the app, it's just like move.
Oh, you're just spending all this time just moving,
getting out there to progress it. Where if you're not exploring any rooms and there's
you're
no
just like,
wandering monsters, like we leave.
Yeah.
So, but aside from that, it was fun. The reason I brought that up though was because we were talking last time, and I specifically were like, I can now call out that there is no longer any GWIP in there.
Right.
Chaos Warriors are no longer Chaos Warriors. The Gargoyle's not a Bloodthirster. I guess it was called the Gargoyle before, but it was a Bloodthirster.
It totally was, yeah.
But they have moved away from that completely.
Are there any Chaos Warriors in there, but they're called something else?
They're no longer the same sculpt that has that iconic kind of Chaos Warrior Knight, and I think they're called
like
Corrupted Warriors or Corrupted Knights or something like that.
Travis has this. So,
yeah. But it's very accurate to the original game. Still super fun.
That's great.
Now,
if I remember correctly, it was produced by Milton Bradley originally, but backed by GW. Like GW did the design.
Yep. And IP.
And IP. Yeah.
But now it's Avalon Hill, I believe,
Interesting.
for the re-release, and now it's separate IP, but same.
I wonder if they're going to re-release Battle Masters.
I used to have it.
I did too.
I never played it, but I had it. I still have the
that
little
big
tower.
tarp you roll out, dude.
With the little balls.
That,
they shoot the cannon with.
You know what they did? They are releasing is there's a Kickstarter for Castles and Catapults.
Oh, where
you're
just like
you actually shoot the things.
Yeah.
They're
that's what I was thinking of for Battle.
But nowadays it's going to come with safety glasses.
Yeah,
of course.
I hope so.
And it'll be little Nerf balls.
Yeah, right.
No more hard plastic.
Yeah. I'm going to use marbles. All right. So what else did you do?
Okay. So in actual more 40K terms, me and Brian got together and we played a game of Titanicus, which was a phenomenal game. We used the open engine war deck, which had a fun kind of mix of circumstances, including some, there was like Titan, we're in a war zone, an active war zone. So there was like each turn you'd roll to see if kind of these infantry units on the board are shooting at Titans. And if you roll one, they shoot you. And if you roll 2+, you get to shoot one of the enemies, and both players get to roll for that. There's also a lightning storm going on. So if void shields were down, there's a chance that lightning would be attracted to the giant metal lightning rod of a Titan. So lightning was pretty fun happening also. The first 4 Titans that died, the first 4 engine kills in the game were catastrophic meltdowns, which is the biggest explosion you can get in the game. So it was just really fun, calamitous, just a bunch of cascading explosions and damage and things like that happening right off the bat. So just a really fun game. I ran the Corrupted Titan for the first time, so I had proxied another one.
Right.
With a actual painted Titan, since mine wasn't
Just to
done
see
yet.
how it
just
performed.
to try it out on the table, and also I wanted to show Brian how they work because I know that's 100% up his alley.
Totally, yeah.
So he is now I think building 2 Corrupted Titans after having played this game. So it was a great success and it's just super fun game.
I wasn't familiar with the Open Engine War deck. Is that actually a official product release?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
And they so I picked it up right when it came out the first time, and it went out of stock pretty quickly, as paper
as most
products
of their
from
cards
GW
do.
tends to do,
Yeah.
right? But they did just reprint it and re-release it maybe a month ago. So if you can get your hands on it, it's definitely worth picking up.
So
It's a really fun way to play the game because similar to other open war decks, is it has your deployment zone, it has your main scenario, it has secondary objectives, it has a planetary effect, and then it has like your
that
war
is
zone
really
effect
cool.
in there.
Yeah.
So
I love that way of
Yeah.
playing. Like I love that way of playing most games. And we were talking about that earlier. Like a lot of times you'll turn over a card and you're like, it doesn't sound like fun. You want to play that? Nah, let's do something else. All right, we switch.
Takes no time at all. It's
Such
just
a great.
Yep.
I would say 85% of the games of Titanics I've played have been using that open engine war deck, and they're
Interesting.
fun, really fun games. Just interesting things that they just tweak the main roles in a way that makes it an interesting experience.
Interesting.
Sweet,
I
man.
did not know about this. All right.
Yeah, pick it up if you can still
And
get your
ordered.
hands on it. Yeah.
And I'm looking at my phone.
So after that,
what else did you do, Josh?
I took a long trip up to Oregon. I went to Bend, Oregon, just to
Yeah,
play
you
a
did.
game with Campbell from
Campbell?
Bad Cast
Campbell
Infamy.
McLaughlin?
That's the one. Yeah.
We love Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell's awesome. So yeah, I actually met up with Campbell in Bend and got a game of Necromunda in with him. We did a skirmish game as a 1,500 point skirmish game, my Deloc against his Goliath. And we played a Goliath specific mission because each gang has a couple of missions in their House of X books that will bring something thematic to that game. So the game we played was called the Feast of the Fallen. And this was a pretty cool mission in that you when somebody's actually taking damage, so they're taking injury rolls.
Okay.
Depending on what they've been hit with, you roll to see if they basically become the god of something. So they are imbued by the spirit in some way. So I had my it was a Paisky Inspector that came in, and it has melee weapons and shock weapons. So it's like electrocuting tentacles. And it went and hit one of his champions. And instead of killing his champion, he rolled, and it did become the god. I don't remember what the god of was, but basically it prevented his guy from dying. His guy now has basically electric fists.
Oh, jeez.
It was just super fun and thematic. Very Necromunda, just silly, weird stuff happening.
Random,
It's
yeah.
super fun. Yeah, his champion went from should have been dead to is now the god of whatever it was. Has electric fist, turns around and punks the Spectre in return. It was a really, really fun game, super close. We played, both our gangs were bottled. Like we're down to, I think he had 2 wounds left on the table, and I had one guy, and my last guy bottled and ran away. Having reread the mission for this episode here, I realized that I had actually won the game for killing the guy who became the god. But the way we were playing it, we were just basically last man standing. So technically I won there, but
Actually,
I think I won.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I bring that up is because I know every game that any of the ICs have played against the bad guys, we've all lost. So,
Oh, yeah.
like, technically I won. So I'm calling it out.
Well done. Listen. They're better players than I am by a long shot. Okay, I ordered the open one.
Oh, nice. I bought you enough time. That's all I got.
Good job. Good job. All right, that's us.
FOMO.
Yeah, I mean, I was super excited to hear that you were up there with Campbell, and we're going to actually hear from Campbell later in this episode too, not about your game specifically, but I am going to challenge him to, so I heard you actually lost, Campbell.
Yes.
But
I haven't told him that.
But yeah, we're going to start off with the music too loud.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back, and then we're going to start talking about Necromunda. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the House of Chance. right, welcome back to the Underhive, where we're talking Necromunda. We're going to talk the House of Chains, or House Goliath. If you're not familiar with Necromunda, well, we've got an episode on Necromunda we did many years ago with Tom and Jeff and myself, but we're going to do an updated kind of primer. Josh
we did do a more recent one too. I think it was episode 205-ish, something like that. Yeah.
Who knows? Go through our back catalog.
Yeah. But that was more about the campaign itself and how a campaign plays out. Yeah.
But basic premise, Necromunda is a hive city, and it extends up to the atmosphere.
Necromunda is actually a planet.
Excuse me.
The planet of Necromunda. Then you
know
have
what, Josh, take it away.
Yep.
Actually,
we were speaking of earlier. It's a reference. So Necromunda is a planet. It's an imperial planet. On planet Necromunda, there are many hive cities.
Yes.
Several at least. Hive Primus being the primary hive city, and hive cities, of course, are giant tower conical structures that go up into the stratosphere of the planet from subground all the way up into the atmosphere, really. And so there are a handful of big spire hive cities there. There's a bunch of radiation. Ash wastes are on Necromunda. It's a terrible place to live. Conditions are terrible. And
but in the city, the nobles live at the top, the dregs live at the bottom, and everybody labors in between.
So you've got the Lord right up top.
All right.
Yeah. The house is kind of in the middle. And
so, and amongst these, you have several gangs that you can collect and play, and the one we're speaking of is House of Chains. And Necromunda came out in 95 originally.
Yep.
Then was re-released in 2017 as Necromunda Underhive, and now we have Ash Waste as well.
Did you play the original Necromunda?
I did, not a lot, just from timing. There was 40K was definitely the more active game.
Second ad, yeah.
Mordheim was out back in similar time frame too.
That's the one
a little bit later.
I played a lot more of that, but
that's the one I didn't play, and I want to play.
Yeah. I did have a Delot gang back in the day. The trench coat shotgun dudes have always appealed to me. So
nice. Yeah, I played the crap out of the original Necromunda with my Escher. Yeah, my buddy played Goliath mostly, and it
was one of the original gangs.
Yeah,
right.
So much story behind them.
Yeah, well now,
time.
Yeah, right.
No, at that time it was a paragraph.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
What's interesting is, so in our episode a long time ago with Jeff and Tom and us, when we played that, I used Aaron's Goliath guys at the time for that. So that was literally the only Necromunda I had ever played was that day, and I remember really, really enjoying it, though. It was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a much more complicated combat system. It's almost a role-playing game combat system housed as a miniature war.
I would say it's the closest experience to a role-playing game you can get in a tabletop form.
Yeah. All right. So, as we just said, the Goliath, one of the original Necromunda gangs, as you said, a whopping paragraph of detail on them. But since then, it's kind of expanded a bit. This is a house that values nothing higher than physical strength.
Right. Yep.
They are the Terra has actually classified them as abhuman.
Yeah.
Which means, they're effectively an offshoot of humanity, but they're what do you call it? They're accepted.
They're sanctioned, similar to like Ogren.
Like a psyker. Yeah, and like Ogren. Exactly.
And possibly turning a little blind eye to a little bit of the things that go on.
Right. So, effectively they are vat grown. We'll get into a little bit of that.
Absolutely.
But they were bred specifically to do physical hard labor. And now they've kind of thrown off, in many cases, they've thrown off the shackles of slavery and kind of
the chains, if you will,
forged their own way into the underhives of the various hive cities
and become a house.
Yeah, and become a house unto themselves.
And they were created very specifically for their physical properties to be able to endure the terrible conditions that the Underhive specifically has in there. So radiation's rampant. There's poisonous gas, things like that. So they're tough and strong is really their MO.
All right, so here's how they kind of fit into Necromunda, the ecosystem, if you will.
Yeah.
As we just mentioned, they were originally a slave race bred in vats by Lord Helmar, who was we're now thousands, you told me earlier, there were thousands of years from that point. This is his line still.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they were bred specifically for this kind of work. They were intended to provide slave labor for the hive and work under, as you just said, conditions that were too dangerous for normal people.
Unsurvivable for the normal denizens of Necromunda.
Now, because they were vat-born, they are primarily male. They are sterile. And
they come out pretty much like fully formed.
Yeah. I mean, they do come out fully formed. And actually what they do is they have a very short lifespan.
Yeah.
Like 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. Either
average,
through death or just their physiology.
Their system just overloaded with all the stems. And
Yeah. And, but what they determined was they vat grow them and they basically implant this kind of baseline knowledge in their head of, here's what your role is. Here's what you're here to do. And that's it. And that's where they start.
Yeah.
And very low intelligence.
Yeah.
A little bit of cunning. There's going to be some orky.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important to call out that they were originally commissioned by Lord Helmar by the Van Saar and Eschers.
Yep.
So they actually had a long time standing alliance.
two other
house gangs of Necromunda to come together and create the Goliath. And
but
a lot of those
Van Saar
things,
wanted to kind of like
they
find a way
they
to
both did. So they were both trying to like co-opt the technology of the vat creation to, get their own thing going. So there was a lot of distrust and sabotage and things like that going.
Yep.
But everything you just brought up with of like low intelligence, short lifespan, able to survive these incredibly harsh conditions were all very much engineered so that the Goliath kind of wouldn't uprise and take over the planet because they're going to be ideally suited to survive the worst of the conditions that the planet has to offer.
Right. So, so a couple things. So they detest weakness.
Yes.
Right. They absolutely detest, because I mean they're these roided out muscle huge guys. They're larger than Space Marines.
Yes, they are,
and some are even larger than that. But in fact, I was reading a book Justin Hill wrote, which I'll get to it later, but there's a scene where they talk about somebody who fell into one of these vats of like these growth hormones for these, and the person like just kept growing and like they split out of their skin. They were in pain and they finally just,
it's the scene from Akira when Tetsuo just goes,
yeah, exactly.
That's exactly it.
So the reason they're called House of Chains is kind of twofold. One is they take that name to basically remember that they threw off the shackles of
being created as slaves,
oppression and slavery. Yeah. But the really interesting thing is that they have also kind of fallen right back into slavery, but not really slavery of other people, but of themselves.
To their own,
whoever's
own
the strongest
system.
runs that, and now they are, and they actually have slaves.
Yes.
Who they despise. They
detest them because of
their
their
weakness.
weakness.
Yeah. Which I thought that was a really, really interesting, like psychological circle that they find themselves in.
Right. Yeah.
So
they were strong enough to overthrow, and anyone who's not doesn't deserve to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, Anyway, they're, as we said, the youngest of the houses. They were created by this alliance, and then they've kind of, if we talk about how they've evolved over the years since the game originally came out, why don't you talk a little bit about what the original Necromunda vision of them was? Yeah,
so in the original rulebook that came out in 95, they were just a fully fledged house gang. There was no mention of them being created by the Alliance or anything like that. They were just a pre-existing gang. The lore, to be fair to it, is about a paragraph and a half, so not a lot of depth on that.
And honestly, that was kind of the lore for each of the
games.
It's all very, very limited.
Very short and sweet in there. But a lot of the big picture bullet points were still there. So the slave element was not, but the strength, endurance, them being ideally suited for the harshest conditions of Necromunda, all in there. and just kind of the whole might makes right mentality. Like
Right.
that's been in there since day one.
Right. And so then what happens is Necromunda Underhive comes out in, what did we say, 2017?
Yeah.
Which sells like crazy, by the way. And it's a great set.
Yes.
And people are very excited that it is re-releasing what is arguably a classic fan favorite.
Right.
And then screams of, when are you going to release Battlefleet Goliath? Yeah. But when this releases, you get a little bit more information about them. It adds various elements such as their reliance upon Escher chemicals. It talks a little bit about their short lifespan.
Much more of the that grown nature of the Goliath versus just the hulking brutes that have kind of been here, and now they're more of a creation.
Yeah. And then like there's still no mention, if I'm not incorrect, of them being slaves.
Correct. That does not come till House of Chains.
And then House of Chains comes out. Yeah. And this is, I think 3 or 4 of the house books. Like this feels like the thickest of all of them. Which makes sense for Goliath.
Yeah, should be thick.
It's the mightiest tome of them all.
Yeah, and this kind of releases a lot more background about them.
Yeah.
And it really goes into depth. And honestly, in preparing for this, there were rules in this book that, even though I owned it, like I knew how to play my base gang. Like I didn't realize there's like gene enhancements that you can take. There's even an Ogren army in this book that I did not realize.
Those models are amazing too.
Super cool.
Where are those? Are those in the Necromunda section? I didn't look.
They should be a GW Prime Necromunda box set. They might be.
Yeah,
I didn't know if
plastics, aren't they? They're not
They're
Forge
plastic.
World.
Yeah, they might be out of stock at the moment.
I didn't know if you took the Ogren from like the IG line and
they have their own
Yeah.
models, and those models are fantastic.
Wow,
Yeah.
I did not realize
You
that.
should
Well,
get some.
Clearly, I need more for my house.
So
of
while I'm
chips.
talking, Carl, you
All right, here we go. Yeah, take it away.
Yeah,
I gotta make an order. Why not? I've already ordered cards. So let's talk a little bit about the house organizational structure. You have the alphas.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
So I guess the top dog is going to be the Over Tyrant. And they are the guy. They are the biggest, the baddest leader of the entire clan, Goliath, House Goliath, clan and house being kind of interchangeable there. They're the only way you get there to be that guy is by besting the existing Over Tyrant. So
some more orky references.
yeah, exactly.
There.
Yeah,
It is kind of.
there's a lot of similarity between the Goliath structure and the Orc structure. They're just there for a good fight. The really interesting thing about this is that only if somebody really thinks that they can do something different or better, because there is kind of a low cunning to Goliath. There's not a driving need to overthrow those above them. So they kind of really do accept the structure that they've created for themselves. So you've got the Over Tyrant there, who's the big bad boy until somebody thinks they can do something better and prove it by being bigger and badder.
Right.
Under them, there's alphas, and each of the hive cities has an alpha that is in charge, and they're basically, the managers of the hive, really.
Right.
Sometimes an alpha will challenge the Over Tyrant and fail, and not necessarily they won't always be dispatched. Sometimes it's an up and coming challenger, and they're like, I like what you're doing here. I'm going to make you an alpha. Like, you get a hive. You don't get the whole clan, but you get the hive.
Right.
So, there's a neat structure in there. And then under the alphas, you've got a couple different levels of people who are in charge of the slave pits, people who are in charge of the forges, the bosses of the different kind of industry areas.
Right.
Of
and we'll talk about the forges in a little bit,
absolutely.
because that's a very important piece of them
Huge. Yeah.
that has been added to their lore. But also, there's kind of, we mentioned before that you have, they're grown.
Yes.
Well, that's not entirely true.
It's a third of the equation.
Yeah.
They're designed to be grown.
Correct. And the Goliath that are basically created are known as vat-born.
Yep.
And they use these amnio-vat technologies and preconditioning. This is the majority of the Goliaths. These are the ones I talked about.
Yep.
They're sterile. They are not the brightest.
Huge,
they're male. Yeah.
Live for 10 years.
Live for 10 years.
Then you have what are called Natborn.
Yes.
And this is like kind of rare. And this is important.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we'll talk about this
How
one.
that came to be, right?
Yeah. We'll talk about this one last, actually.
Okay.
Because then you have Unborn. And Unborn are
really interesting.
Hey, I'm a guy.
They're the Diganobs.
Yeah. I'm a guy and I really like I really like the Goliath gang, or I've fallen in with them. I want to undergo all these chemical and gene enhancements and roid up and bulk out so that I can be a member of this gang.
Yeah.
And so
it's basically a citizen of Necromunda, just your everyday average human who wants to become a Goliath, and the transformation they have to go to, not unlike a person becoming a space marine, rigorous and terrible.
And horribly painful.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, not the most pleasant of situations. Yep. But now let's bounce back to the Natborn.
Yes.
Because these are...
Which obviously means
naturally
born. Born and bred, yeah.
Which, kind of, I got like vibes like, I don't want to do any spoilers, but I'm going to spoil, fast forward like 15 seconds. If you haven't seen Blade Runner 2049 by now, but like it's this case where
good call.
Whatever happens, they are able to actually breed a naturally born Goliath amongst themselves. And this is important because this is kind of the future of Goliath. If they can shift to this natural born state, a couple things happen. One, they become a true race.
Yeah.
Well, this was also Vansar and Escher tweaking this too. It wasn't like this happened naturally.
Right.
Like this was, okay, Escher wanted to have true males to mate with.
That's when you started getting, right, because, Escher were trying to add males
this didn't just happen
to their gang,
like,
so they were tweaking around
magically.
with things. There's a lot of test tube experiments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But basically what it resulted in is female Goliath who were fertile.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Which, again, if this propagates, they kind of get a different level. Like they become true abhumans, not just grown in vats. And when that occurs, they could hypothetically begin to spread.
They live longer naturally. They live like 50 years instead of 10 years.
They're higher intelligence.
If you can make it 50 years in the Underhive, you're doing something
tough.
right or terribly wrong.
Yeah, right. Do you want to?
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought that was a very interesting, like long-ranging look at where it was such an interesting, like this is where they could go, and they could, and that's where they could truly throw off the shackles of their oppression.
Like because Goliath, for the Vatborn Goliath, they are still reliant upon Escher for chemicals and stims in order for that process to happen. Where the Natborn, they do their own thing. Like they're naturally born, and then the Goliaths create their own chems and stims to supplement the Goliath lifestyle.
Right.
Which is it is important to note that even every Goliath, Natborn or Vatborn,
Unborn,
in order to survive life as a Goliath, they are continuously getting a fix of stims and chems in order to just keep their bodies going, which is part of what burns them out, but also part of what allows them to survive in all these terrible conditions with such stature.
I find it really interesting too that like whether Nat or Vatborn, that they accept the unborn in. They're not like you guys are just these imposters that are taking a bunch of steroids. Like, you guys want to join the party? Join the party.
They're probably not.
Let's measure your arms first.
They're probably not the most respected.
They actually are, which is probably like if you survive the process, they're like, you're in.
Because you're that tough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A lot of those, the unborn will come in having survived the process, and they won't necessarily see themselves as worthy. So they're going to volunteer for some of the worst jobs, the hardest things like that, in order to help gain reputation for them. But the Goliath do accept them very readily into Goliath culture.
And even slaves, I seem to remember reading in House of Chains that if a slave kicks a bunch of butt and he can earn his freedom and join the crew.
Yep, absolutely. That whole strength element. One thing we'll get into probably a little bit more, but one of the big parts of industry for Goliath are the slave pits and the fighting pits.
Yep.
So they'll take slaves and just, hey, you're going to go fight today for entertainment. And if somebody fights enough, wins enough, shows how strong they are, they'll actually earn their freedom and independence and become kind of unborn members of Goliath that way. If they can then survive that process.
It's not a great life. It's not a pleasant existence. I mean, life in the Underhive is really probably pretty tough. And so let's talk a little bit about kind of their house territories and house enclaves, if you will.
Yeah.
And so the first territories they claimed were Manufactorum territories, which makes a ton of sense because this is the life they knew.
It's what they're bred for. It's what. So we talked a little bit about the slug that they're basically, it's a brain implant that tells them
here's the base,
everything you need to know, including this is how you do your job. Like this is how you smelt something. This is how you build a bayonet, and this is how you wield a forge hammer or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, I think it's important to also realize like where they, and we probably have this a little bit out of order, but they are so important because they can work these forges, these metal forges, and they've kind of got a lock on it. They almost have
they've got a monopoly
on it at this point. So what's interesting about that is that the lords of the hives recognize their value and actually kind of
they turn a blind eye to a lot of things that are less cool about this very violent muscle bunch.
Yeah. Muscle bunch
going and doing I mean they're not nice people, but they make the planet a lot of money. It's important to note that Goliath are probably the only reason that Necromunda still meets its imperial tithe on a regular basis, which, as we all know, if that doesn't happen, things get real ugly for everybody on that planet, including old Lord Helmbar up in his tower.
Yeah. Of course, it takes about 1,000 years till somebody figures it out, but sure.
But then they send the Venom assassin at you.
That's right. So, an assassin. Beyond, and you say here, beyond the Manufactorums, Goliath can be found in abandoned domes, broken factories, and toxic zones too lethal for other human life. And one of the interesting tactics that they will take to gain territory is they will sabotage like air scrubbers and the machinery that is needed to make a area inhabitable and turn it toxic because only they can survive there. And they're like, well, I guess this is ours now.
So, and them also being the youngest house or gang, if you will, they have grabbed so much territory so quickly because they are so ideally suited for the conditions of Necromunda.
Yeah, that's a great call out.
Which has sparked a lot of gang wars with multiple other gangs, houses, clans teaming up against Goliath because they are
like, whoa, these guys are getting a little too.
Well, they're taking too much territory, but they also, I think, can see the long-term plan, if you will, of Goliath could potentially really inherit Necromunda because at the end of the day, they will be the only thing that can survive.
The planet of Necromunda.
The planet, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think Goliath sees that themselves. I think the other people see it.
I think the over tyrants have an idea, and they are trying to expand, and they got their fingers in some things going on, trying to integrate with society in different ways, just to figure out how to run a society. But from the top down, like from the Lord in his tower to the leaders of the houses, like. They see Goliath as a potential future threat, but they also know how important and integral they are to Necromunda's survival in the moment. So they kind of turn a blind eye, but they're also terrified of the potential where they could go.
Right. So you have house enclaves. What are house enclaves? Can you give me kind of a
so the enclaves are kind of the main places where Goliath are going to be. Yeah. Okay. Each hive has its own set of things, but basically where you're going to find the Goliaths are going to be in forges. Anywhere there's a Manufactorum, a forge, that's kind of the bread and butter. Anywhere you're going to find Goliaths, you're going to find a forge.
Yeah.
Metal shows. They're definitely metal shows.
Yes. There's mosh pits. Oh, they got slave pits, fighting pits, and mosh pits.
There's some parallels there.
Pits you get there. So in addition to the forges, there also are some Goliaths just up in the hive cities, which are living more along the population of Necromunda. These are generally people who have proven themselves to outstanding in one field or another, and it's an alpha or over tyrant kind of sending them out into the world to try and spread the Goliath cause or find other ways to.
They can find work as like guards, as bodyguards
for guilders, because Goliath has a really healthy relationship with the guild. The Guild of Necromunda is a big deal for trading black
Nobody
market,
messes with the guild.
Nobody messes with the guild. Goliath are the bodyguard. Just their sheer physical presence like helps part a crowd to for the guild to like smoothly pass through a crowded hive area. In the Underhive themselves, you'll find them in just the places that nobody else can survive, and this is where they've really grabbed so much territory. It's just everything's nasty. It's toxic air, terrible conditions.
But they're the only ones that can operate there.
They're the only ones that can operate there, and there's a lot of where the forges and things like that are going to be in those areas. There's just some really good access to resources that they can grab. And beyond the hives, out in the Ash Waste, Goliath actually do really well also, as we've talked about them just being kind of naturally suited to the conditions of Necromunda. They are able to survive the kind of the radiation of the waste. So they're drivers for guild again for themselves. There's also all the there's Ash Waste gangs, but then there's a lot of or not a lot. There are several well-established cities out in the Ash Waste, and you will definitely find Goliath in there because they're some of the few people that can survive, and they're
just no mask needed. Just hanging out.
Yeah, exactly.
Speedo.
Yep, just spray paint to the mouth. And,
right. Yeah. And so let's talk about how we've touched on this a little bit, but how the gang fits within the larger kind of ecosystem of Necromunda. And we talked previously about industry.
Yeah.
And I kind of hinted at like why they're so important and why the lords of Necromunda kind of turn a blind eye towards this is because they have a lock and a monopoly, as you said, on these forges, and they're able to produce not just for off-world transit and tithing, but also for the planet to continue to operate and survive as it is. So I think that's probably one of the most important pieces for them at this point is that they, as you said, they continue to grow. They have this monopoly. Like they're a true force within
absolutely
that everybody, and it's happened so quickly. There's kind of like an orc reference again. Like it just quickly has happened and people are reacting to it at this point.
Some of those industries worth calling out here too is there was the forges, which we've already talked about. They actually get the ore from the Orlok.
Yeah.
House Orlok like does all the mining, but they can't do anything with that raw ore. So they hand it off to the Goliaths, and the Goliaths smelt it, turn it into machines, turn it into weaponries. They have armories, so they actually supply arms and armor for most of the Imperial Guard regiments in the local systems to there. And there's actually a kind of known appreciation. If a guardsman sees a Goliath stamp on his bayonet, he knows this is going to be a quality bayonet. So there's also like a little bit of pride in that export, even for people who, don't know anything about Necromunda or that planet, but they know the name Goliath and like, this is well made.
It's cool because I always thought like of Necromunda as like its own, like it's still part of the Imperium. Yeah, it's easy to get lost and just think it's like, and okay, whatever.
Yeah, part of their Imperial tithe is, sending up bayonets to Imperial Guardsmen.
Yes.
Like, great.
They get forged somewhere.
Yeah. An interesting thing is Goliath have armories, and they actually make most of the weapons on Necromunda. So all the weapons that are being held by other houses and gangs are mostly made by the Goliath, which is kind of interesting because there's, such a gang war element to Necromunda. They're actually just selling everybody the guns.
They're too weak to use them against us anyway.
Yeah, right. They don't care. Like, well, they're bullets.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that they are so integral to just the way of life of Necromunda.
Yeah.
But they're also still relatively so new and a created element. But in a lot of ways, it makes sense that they're so.
It's so funny. It's really interesting that the lore has evolved from, as we said, like one paragraph before to now a very expanded, like clearly
45 pages or something.
Clearly, the authors and designers like thought about, okay, let's take a step back and think about how all these gangs fit in.
Yeah.
This is one of the original gangs, but they're like, oh, it's the youngest gang. It just works in the large scale of the 40K universe.
Yeah.
Okay. So within the book also, there is a section called Gangs of Legend. which talks about various gangs and how they've achieved like a legendary status, or which is always done very quickly because we talked about the age. Like I think there was one in there. It's like he's been in alpha for 17 years, and it's like that's a long time.
Wow.
That's 2 lifetimes.
Yeah. So
Was he natty? Was he natty?
So we each went through and kind of picked one of the various gangs of legend, and you know why they appealed to us. And Justin, let's start with you actually on this. You chose the Iron Tree Reavers.
Yeah, mostly because Mad Max. I mean, how cool is like these big buff dudes like riding around? So they're led by this dude Axon, which I think Forge World has a model for him.
Okay,
I believe they do. Which the model's not the most impressive. I looked at him. I'm like, okay, he's cool. But anyhow, he rides
Axon Hammer.
He rides into battle on this big rig called the Behemoth, surrounded by a cloud of smaller Goliath vehicles. You know, so it's just pure Mad Max.
Oh, it totally is.
It's
Like-
chrome all day.
Yeah, dude.
That's right. Witness me.
Yeah, for sure. And they're just constantly raiding House Orlok convoys and selling the goods, just pillaging and raiding all their goods. So of course this dude naturally has a big bounty on his head, but just the visualization of like this dude riding on this big old rig with all these bikers and stuff around him.
That is kind of cool. They're big in themselves, and the rig is like even outsizing.
Dude. I want to see I need art of what that Behemoth
I'm
looks
pretty
like.
sure in the rules he's an outlaw bounty hunter. So
He is.
he's still Goliath, but
He's outlaw,
can be
yeah.
hired by outlaw gangs.
Yeah,
And
there's actually quite a few of them, and we'll get into that when we talk about the support of these things too. Josh, you chose
I chose Durgan Killfist and his Knuckle Boys.
Knuckle Boys.
They're in Hive Trazier, which is not Hive Primus, but it's one of the larger hives, not the main hive there. Most of these gangs we've noticed, like it's really the leader that gets the call out, and then everybody else is just kind of his goons. But,
Yeah.
So Durgan himself, like everybody has heard of him.
matches
Yeah.
how you build your game
For sure,
So,
absolutely, and it makes sense for just the strength hierarchy of the Goliath period, but then also how you build the gang.
If the other people were notable,
They'd be in charge.
They'd be in charge.
Just everybody would be the leader.
That's right.
Everyone knows of Durgan, but very few people to anybody has actually met him. The thing that they are most famous for is they once turned an entire dome, a habitation dome, into a fighting pit.
Yeah.
They sealed off all the doors, all the entryways, and just had everybody in there. There's rival gangs, rival clans, and the citizenry. They just had everybody fight to the death.
It's what's that movie where there's like no laws for one day?
It's the Thunderdome.
The Purge. It's the Purge.
Yeah.
Goliath style.
They so the enforcers show up to this dome afterwards, and the walls are painted in blood.
What? No way.
Yeah, and there's no sign of the Goliath. They have since absconded with their trophies. The few people who did survive, they have actually been more kind of inducted into the potential of the unborn track there.
That makes sense. So they prove themselves.
They proved themselves, but they killed a lot of people. Yeah, and that was just entertainment for them. So,
So
Savage.
for me, I went with my own gang here.
Yep.
Rather than go like, look at this. Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't you?
Right. So my gang is known as the Smoke Boys. and they're and I went with this theme, like I don't remember how it stuck with me, where they were all like prisoners.
Yeah.
And so when they're painted, they're all painted like either their pants or whatever are orange, because they're supposed to be like those orange jumpsuits that
penal colony jumpsuit. Yeah.
prisoners wearing. So my backstory for these guys was that they were pulled off world as prisoner slaves to work the mines in a death world. They were being pulled off world because they had become too violent in the work that they were doing in these places. So they're like, okay, well, we need these things mined. We're going to ship these guys off to this death world. They'll provide some use to that time. Well, as they're, and I always picture it almost like the Stallone version of Judge Dredd, where they've like got all these guys in a Thunderhawk or whatever, and they're going to fly them off to, this is in my head how I visualized it. And they're led by Castle, Kasle is the leader's name. And he broke free, and they ended up crashing the transport into the wastes. And they were able to make their way back through the sewers into the Underhive, where they've begun carving out like a small empire, taking slaves and muscling their others, out of their turf. And And like I said, they wear this orange clothing because it's supposed to be reminiscent of like their prison time. And as I named the gang, I kind of took a playbook from Tom. Tom and I would play the historical Wild West game that GW had.
Oh yeah.
And Tom had this gang all named after like different alcohols. Like it was the Jack Daniels gang. And he had like every member of the gang was named a different alcohol. So my guys were all kind of named after things I would associate with prison or jail or that kind of thing. So Castle is the leader. Brick and Mortar are like his two chief guys. Then you have like Throwdown, Dropkick, Lowjack. And then, of course, Loopy, I have a Zerker model, and Loopy named him Gingivitis.
You need a guy with just 2 knives named Shiv.
That's right. Oh, Shiv.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's a good Juve.
Yeah.
That's a good Juve.
So when I play them, it's them attempting to grow, right? They've just kind of gotten into the scene and began to grow. Unfortunately, the last time I played, Castle bit the dust pretty quick, and so
that castle crumbled.
And the worst part was it wasn't even like a sanctified match. It was like
that was one of the in between.
Yeah, like the little pickup games. It was just supposed to be a little skirmish. Next thing you know, I like wiped out like all the leaders of my gang, and I'm like, oh no.
That campaign was brutal for like 4 of us.
Yeah, and it was Doug that killed them all. And we're like, what? And they didn't just in Necromunda. If you know the rules, like, when you get taken out, you're not necessarily dead. You know, you can recover. But these guys were dead. Like what? In one fell swoop, I went from doing pretty good to I got to rebuild my whole game.
I need some credits to buy some boys.
So we'll restart.
Yep, coming up soon.
Re-rack.
Castle. So that's my gang, and I gotta say, they're a lot of fun for me to play, and I took a lot of tips on how to play them from Campbell and Dan over at the 40K Badcast. Like I literally reached out to him like, okay, tell me. Now Campbell calls me his Warhammer
Ham Dad,
because he and I traveled off to. I'm significantly older than Campbell. We traveled off to Europe, and he and I had connected through. At the time, we were both Something Awful Forum members, and I was like, I don't even remember how it happened, but we were just like chatting, and I'm like, group of us are going to England, and then we're going to go here, and we're going to go here, and we're going to go to Warhammer World. I'm all, if you want to come, you're welcome. He's like, okay, I'm in. I'm like, who did I just invite? And
a nice man from the internet invited me to Europe with him.
Listen, I have met a lot of men on the internet.
All expenses paid, baby.
Met Jeff,
met
exactly.
Doug, that was
Campbell. I've met a lot of men on the internet, and they've all been very nice.
Good dudes.
So that was my gang. Let's talk a little bit about the models before we take a break. And normally in like Show of Force episodes, we're like, oh, pick 2 models you like and an HQ unit. Gangs in Necromunda are much smaller. And in fact, the line of these models, we might be challenged when we get into other gangs because the line of these models is pretty big in comparison. Yeah. But we each went through and I said, okay, let's at least pick one model that you really appreciate. And it can be one of the plastic line, one of the Forge World line. And let me just say right off the bat, like the plastic line of these models.
Phenomenal.
For like every gang.
Every gang.
There are also so many options.
The entire range of Necromunda is chef kiss.
When you compare it to the original models, too, it's just like there's so many evolutions that they skipped between what was it, 95 and 2017.
I mean, there's still a lot of good metals. Like I still have my old Eschers, you know.
Comparatively though, dude, there's no real comparison.
I mean, the original plastics were wonky, but when the metals started coming out, they were decent. But yeah, compared to the plastics they do now, it's just
So I'll go first. I picked a Forge World model. I think most of us picked Forge World models. I picked a Forge World version of this, and this is Gorshiv Hammerfist, and he's a bounty hunter as well. And he has this really cool pose. He's shirtless, of course. And he's got this hammer with this skull on it. It's
so cool.
And
he's 2 hammers.
Yeah, but one of them has the giant chrome skull on it.
Yeah.
And I just thought this guy is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I love the pose.
It's awesome.
I love everything about it. I love the name. I love everything. And then I chose a runner-up as a Sump Croc.
Sump Croc's awesome.
Sump Croc's the best.
Somebody had to pick that. Yeah.
I have a Sump Croc.
Yes, you do.
He's awesome.
You have him painted up too?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the whole game's painted.
The last skirmish game we played, you brought the Sump Croc.
Had the Sump Croc.
Yeah, fun to see it on the table.
Sump Croc, for those who don't know, is kind of a crocodile, creature that lives in the sump pumps.
It's a Goliath.
Why would Goliath not have a crocodile?
It's a Goliath pit bull.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool model.
So that was my choice. I really dig this model. I know it's a Forge World model. I actually have several Forge World models. I don't think I have this guy. But again, as Show of Force goes, damn if this episode's not going to cost me some money. It's already cost me.
You're already like 20, 30 bucks in, right?
For the cards.
Dude, the chainsaw freaking mohawk.
Yeah,
dude.
It's peak grimdark.
And why have one hammer when you can have two?
Yeah, exactly.
Josh, I have this dude.
Yep. So my first pick, somebody had to pick this guy, which is the Goliath Zerker, which is just the biggest, baddest, roided guy on the market.
He's ridiculous. There. Look how small his head is in comparison.
I like how one hand is really small and one hand is just like that thing just got all the stems.
Yep.
He's got a strong left hand.
He's all left hand. He's all stranger. There's well, I referenced that with Campbell, and he's like, "This hand's stranger, and this hand's danger."
Yeah, dude.
And you get to choose which one's which. But
I gotta say though, man, that head.
The face is
he's hideous.
He's hideous.
Because the artwork in the book on that dude is like pure Bane.
Oh, he looks way meaner in the book than he does. And by the way, the artwork in this book,
yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, his face is a little
derpy,
cartoony, like teenager. But overall, the model's amazing, and you could easily
just snip that off
and put any of the other Goliath heads on there.
Yeah, because you can buy a ton of Goliath heads.
But for the scale and ridiculousness of how this model goes,
like
it kind of fits at the same time. So it's like flavor to taste, but that model's awesome, and he's easily 30% larger than the largest Goliath model.
Huge,
and Goliath are about 30% larger than everybody.
Is he on a 40 mil? Looks like a 40 mil.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he is.
I'll show you mine afterwards. Yeah, he's there. He's a beefy boy, and he's tough.
Yeah,
he's tough,
as he should be.
They're big, bad, and swinging hard, and you can see all like the chems and things like that on his back. There actually are rules that you can do chem injections or stem slugs, things like that, which you activate. You choose to activate when the model activates, and they just take it to 11 for what they're going to do in combat, and they get tougher, they get more attacks, everything like that. So they really come to life. They're awesome and just brutal, and
he's fun. I'll tell you, he's fun to play.
Yeah, they're fun to play against also, which is important.
Yeah, that's such an important part of any game, I think.
Yep.
Right. That statement takes me back to, I played down at, I want to call it the Broadside Bash, I think, in Southern California.
Yes.
And that was the first time I played against I was playing at the time my Khorne Berserker list. It was all themed like Berserkers, and I think I had demons with them. It was all Khorne themed.
And probably some Land Raiders, I imagine.
So I was, sure. I think, yes, of course. I think there were two.
Mm-hmm.
And my point there was, it was like it wasn't going to win me any championships this army, but boy, was it fun to play. I had demon weapons on some guys, and cool. And I played against the Tyranid army, and it was the first time I played against the Tyranid army where the large Tyranids would poop out the
Termagons.
Yeah, you roll the 3 dice, and as long as you rolled no doubles, they continued to spawn more Termagons. And this dude was like, he drew a chart, and he showed like, okay, this guy's pooping, and like he tracked the whole thing. And it was the most fun game I ever had, because it was like,
how many can I kill? I don't care who wins.
I was killing tons. I lost the game, but I killed tons of stuff, and it was so fun.
Feeding me skulls.
It was so fun to play against, though. Like, I felt like I was making progress. I was not, but I felt good about it. Playing these guys is fun. Super like that.
Fun. Yeah. So anyway, that model just top notch. My bonus mention here is also just the Goliath Stimmer, which is from the plastic kit, the new plastic kit, because there's the base kit and then there's the expansion kit.
Yep.
And this is a champion level model. What they do, there's a shooty version and then there's a combat version. So something you can load these guys up, give them 2 chain axes or whatever it is, and just you point them and they go, and they have a lot of fun doing
Give
it.
them a renderizer.
Yes, you can give them 2.
That's
Renderizer.
that's just my favorite word to say for the
amazing.
weapons that these guys get.
Yeah.
Renderizer. What'd you pick, Justin?
I went for Ajax Gorgoth.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The tank,
Sexy
the
beast.
walking tank with a metal nose, because his got bit off in the gladiatorial arenas. Just a cool model, but I was torn though too.
So naturally, he just forges a new
just
one.
made a new one.
Yeah.
Just all good. Drilled it in, good as new.
Oh God, that sounds so gross.
It's so dope, but just a beefy model, man.
Yeah.
So beefy.
All of them are.
But initially, like, I really liked my runner up, but it was kind of tough. I really like that base biker, the Maulers, I think they're called.
Yeah, the Goliath Mauler.
Yeah, those
So
are
cool.
I haven't bought any of those yet. Hang on.
Oh, they already exist. So
know.
making your gang an Ash Waste gang
Super easy.
is you're 2 Maulers away from it.
Well, also they have like ash waste conversion kits.
The Forge World conversion kit gives them like
I know.
backpacks and
I know. I saw it all.
and bandanas because they don't need rebreathers.
Justin, how are you not more drawn to this gang?
He's already,
None of them have sleeves.
he's already got the
I know.
muscles.
I know. Call me crazy. I've always, when it came to Necromunda, I always loved the Escher. But
Is that your
that
Dark
being
Eldar
said, though,
kinda?
I don't know. That being said, I'm not like too sprung on the new Escher models.
Interesting.
I mean, they're cool, but I do have a Delac gang,
Yeah.
all painted up that I was planning on joining the fun with. But when I do, it's painted.
Nice. All right.
So-
all right. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm weird.
Brotherhood and sleeveless.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well,
Spikes, metal, muscles.
let's do this. We're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna come back, and we're gonna leap into kind of how you play the game using this gang a bit, and we'll get into some more information about Black Library books, models, supporting stuff. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back for part 2 of our Underhive Faction House of Chains.
Stemmed by Red Bull
That's right, stemmed by Red Bull.
and Stella.
There you go. So the next thing we want to talk about real quick are gang units, and this is where each of us gets to pick like our favorite unit that we would put in the gang were we running the gang. Like it's kind of like, this is my must take for whatever reason. It may not even be the best unit in the game, but I like it because of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go first.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. A Forged Tyrant.
Yeah.
Now this is a leader of the gang. So it's almost,
You're going to want to have one.
you're going to have one anyway, right? But for me, this model is just great. Of all the plastic models that they came out with, I absolutely love this model. And in particular, mine is equipped with like a power hammer and a combi plasma pistol. But the thing I love about the model is if you notice, Justin, he's got a cigar in his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, one of the interesting...
And a chainsaw hat.
And a chainsaw hat, as you do. But one of the interesting things about that cigar in his mouth,
It's a bit.
it is the smallest bit I have ever seen on a model.
And you managed to get that in there with plastic or super glue. That's impressive.
Shut up. Yeah, see how versatile super glue is?
Plastic glue would it's so much easier.
Yeah, well, listen, so many people were talking about, and the funny thing is he has like, if you don't put the cigar in, he has like a hole in his mouth,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
But so many people were losing the cigar. Like you'd clip it off the thing and beep, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, but then you could like clip a little tip of a toothpick and stick it in there and be fine.
Yeah, but what you do is this. You cut the sprue piece off so you have it still attached to the sprue.
Uh-huh.
You put a drop of glue on the cigar, you stick it in the mouth, then you clip the sprue off and you don't lose it.
Just keep part of the gate on there.
That's right.
Sticking on. Yeah.
That's right. And you never lose it. And so that's what I did. Came
Nice.
out perfect.
Yeah, it looks great.
That was like pro advice from somebody at Forge World, by the way. that I got. I don't remember who told me that, but it was somebody at Forge World. They're like, just do this. I'm
You
like,
need a hot sand.
oh
man.
yeah.
Yeah, how many times did you have to
After the
dry
hot
fit?
sand, man.
Right.
Dry fit the cigar before it finally landed.
But it is such a great model,
Yeah,
and,
it is.
and we're looking at them now on my table, and you really can see the difference between the Forge Tyrant size, which is the standard size of the Goliath, and the Zerker. I mean, it's a significant difference. Just when you thought these guys were big, the Zerker's even bigger.
Yep. And then you compare it to anybody that's not a Goliath and Necromunda, and
they're huge.
Both huge.
It's so great because
Yeah.
they're so representative.
Yes.
And then my runner up is a Sump Croc.
Yeah. Nice. You got to keep it going.
Gotta keep going for the
Gotta keep
Sump
it going.
Croc.
Yep.
What about you, Josh?
So I went for Attilius the Axe, and he's a Goliath Pit Tyrant bounty hunter. So he's not just like a standard issue gang member. You need to have some reputation in order to bring him on board. So he's going to be more of a slightly established in your
You
campaign.
earn reputation.
You'll earn reputation as you win matches or have just played enough games, things like that.
And then you can basically bring him on because he's drawn to your success or lack thereof.
Right. Yeah. So you'll hire him. He comes for he's a set amount of credits that you'll hire for him. He's just an amazing melee fighter. There's not actually a model for him yet. There might be one coming out, which I wouldn't be surprised if Forge World puts one out. But the modeling potential for him is phenomenal. He's basically an Eversor assassin meets a Goliath champion.
Yeah, that sounded interesting.
So-
in the notes, I'm like, huh.
Which we'll put up the art on the video version here, but he's basically got that kind of skull head of the Eversor assassin, and then he's just a roided out Goliath pit fighter, which is
Pretty
everything
epic.
that it sounds like. Yeah. The art is just phenomenal. So bringing that to life would be just amazing to see, and I'm sure some people have already done.
I mean, yeah, just to shout out again, the artwork in that book,
Yeah.
it was distracting me from reading because I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah,
Turn
one
the
of-
page, that's cool.
One of my favorite pictures is on page 60 and 61, which is
And this is House of Chains.
House of
Malfunction.
Yeah,
House of Malfunction.
House of Chains, and it's this old three eyes. It's a Goliath Sump beast, and it's
That
like the
special character,
three-headed giant Sump Croc.
Yeah.
And like I look at this thing and I'm like, oh man, how can I model that thing? Like, what toy can I find to cut apart and then green stuff together a bunch of stuff? Because that is a cool looking monster.
I guarantee you there's something out there that it wouldn't even need to be that large because it's not.
Well,
Some Croc's already huge.
He's not that big compared to Goliath. He's
Compared to a person.
like a big, he's as big as a person, but to a Goliath, he's like a big dog.
Yeah.
But but this thing, like, I remember Jeff and I a long time ago going to the Grand Wa out on the battleship, and there was somebody that had a Salamander's army, and they had taken pieces, like plastic pieces of dragons and stuff, and put it on it, and it was like, this was before you could like buy GW dragons everywhere. They'd used toys to enhance the model and then painted the toys.
Uh-huh.
And it looked sick, dude. I mean, it looked really, really good. So like, I'm like, I gotta find some toy that could.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of dragons. Cut a head off a dragon, and
There's probably something that's 3D printable file out
Oh,
there that
good
looks
call.
similar.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good call. All right. Anyway, what did you pick, Josh? Oh, we just went with what you picked. What did you pick, Justin?
I mean, I haven't played Necromunda since like 96. So I just went for the Zerker.
Yeah,
Like, I just
well,
want to run
okay.
that guy and just crush brains, but that head's got to come off.
Now that you're looking at it, you're like, yeah, it's not that great.
No, it was just the artwork for me. Like, I loved the artwork in the book, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I saw the model. I'm like,
oh.
well, he's cool. He's cool.
Yeah, no doubt. But he's not the picture.
But that's the beauty of the
It's
hobby.
not quite as badass.
You don't like a model, just cut that head off, add a little something, a little green stuff here, a little green stuff there. But I think it'd be so
Paint
much
a couple
fun.
of triangles and
A couple triangles. It'd be so much fun to run that guy downfield and just smash skulls.
Yeah.
Like, if I ran that gang, I'd have to find a way to put that guy in there.
Oh yeah, you get them quick. They're a brute, so you can bring them on pretty quickly.
Very
They're
quickly.
only available to Goliath, and you just need a few rep to bring it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple games in, you should be good there.
Great stuff.
I realized that we skipped over what makes my guy so
Oh, I'm
interesting.
so sorry.
Which
I'm so
was
sorry.
He's known as the Undefeated, and so he's a pit fighter who's never actually lost. He was a forge master, so he was just kind of a tinker in armor, etc. And he actually cut his own arm off and replaced it with a chainsaw, essentially.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Which would make you a really good pit fighter. Surprise! But the cool thing about him is he actually has a rule for being undefeated, in that the first time he would go out of action, you get to ignore that.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Like, that's super thematic, right?
Right. Which is, it's really good.
Is there no one else?
Yeah.
Is there no one else?
He's undefeated. The rule has a nice interaction in the game that actually will keep him alive. He might go out of action in other ways,
right?
Flesh wounds or things like that, or you injure him twice and he's out anyways. But just a cool little thing that makes him him.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, listen, you know what? I think we need to figure out and talk about how this gang plays. And to do that, we're going to cut to our correspondent, Campbell McLaughlin, who happens to be in the Underhive right now.
All right, so we are here with Campbell McLaughlin, who is deep in the Underhive in Goliath territory at the moment. You know, I got to be honest, Campbell, the Goliath hideout does not look anything like I expected.
Yeah, well, looks can be deceiving.
Okay.
Yeah,
quite a bit less Forge-like than one would anticipate.
Yeah, I think they're. I came in here expecting it to kind of look like the set of Soundgarden's Outshined music video, but instead there's a lot more neon and plushies than, again, initially expected.
They're probably more sensitive than we really realize.
Yeah, it's just a tough exterior hiding the sensitive man giant beneath.
Understood. Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate the dangerous situation you're in. But if you could help us understand a little bit more about this gang and about where they go. Josh, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, so Campbell, we are very interested in what's your perspective of Goliath are, having observed them up close and in person. What are kind of some of their characteristics that you would call defining characteristics, if you will?
So I've been trying not to break kayfabe here, deeply embedded with the Goliath gang for about 10 years now. So over that time, I've seen how they've kind of developed, grown, built muscle, and so on. They are the de facto Necromunda tank and punching gang. In the way that, say, like, when you think squats, they're the dwarf archetype. They're slow, they're tough, they're armored, they're good at shooting. When you think of the corpse grinders, they're the cornate chaos archetype. They're fast, they're choppy, they're a little fragile. But Goliaths, every single one is a walking mountain of muscle and armor. And if you get too close, they will break your neck.
Sounds frightening, honestly.
Yeah, no, their abilities are brutal. Their weapons are brutal. Their fighters are brutal. Their players obviously are brutal. Looking at 2 out of 3 of them here. Yeah, no, Goliaths are just they are brawn as a gang.
Yeah, I think Campbell and I sit firmly in the unborn category for the Goliath gangs.
Yeah. I don't remember if it's unborn or vat-born that tends to have the gene for male pattern baldness, but yeah, we're in that one.
Well, either way, we both got that gene. So.
And the unborn, you guys are still in the process of adapting to the Goliath.
This is the first phase, losing all your hair.
But actually, you do bring up another very important part of sort of like their lore, their backstory, their fluff, what have you. I'm not going to get too deep into it because we don't want to be here all day, but Goliaths are a gang that value muscle. They value might. They value strength. They are the house of chains. They are typically forge workers and giant manual laborers responsible for moving heavy stuff, carrying slag around, operating the big vats of molten metal, and so on. So in battle, they actually wear their protective gear from the forge. Their main piece of armor is forge plate. A lot of their equipment, like their giant buzzsaws and arc welder type weapons, are pieces of industrial equipment. Even their main heavy weapon, the Crumper rivet cannon, is just a big old Rosie the Riveter gun with one of the best names in all of Warhammer.
Next to the renderizer.
Exactly. The renderizer serrated axe. I can't think of an industrial use for that one aside from maybe trying to renderize a whole cow into jello in about 1.5 seconds. But yeah, that's again taking on that whole idea of strength, brutality, and might. But
so how do they function? How does that translate to how they play on the table? Like, how do you does it? Actually, I should ask you.
So from a strictly stat-based sort of thing, they are tough and they are strong. They have a strength and toughness of 4, which if you're a 40k player, you're like, that's garden variety. But in Necromunda, you're often running at strength or toughness 3, or occasionally even 2 in the case of some of the prospects for fighters. So they are starting off right off the bat with really strong defensive and melee stats. That's often kind of offset with not great shooting or not great ballistic skill, pretty good weapon skill, and pretty garbage psychological stats. Like their willpower, their intelligence are terrible because these guys are thick as a brick. They are, nothing's getting through there. But conversely, because they're so stupid, they're cool, which is the stat that kind of governs whether your guys run away or not, is pretty unshakable. Like they are going to be passing most of their cool checks unless your dice are running exceptionally cold, like they did occasionally when Josh and I just played.
Can you speak towards some of the skills that lend themselves to that, like Nerves of Steel and that kind of cool check in combination?
I mean, I was going to go for Nerves of Steel right off the bat because they have access to the ferocity table on all of their characters. So they're Forge Tyrants, they're Forge Bosses, and so on. And most of the skills in there are very tanky. So Nerves of Steel is one where if I'm building a gang and I'm feeling either power gamey or lazy, which are the 2 modes of thinking really here. If I'm thinking either one of those, I'll just go Nerves of Steel on them, because Nerves of Steel is one of those skills that is never not good. Because skills in Necromunda, they're like feats in D&D. They can be highly situational or they can be game-changing. Nerves of Steel is one where every time your fighter gets hit, they get pinned. That's normal for Necromunda. But with Nerves of Steel, you pass a cool check, which for Goliath is 5+ on 2d6, which is pretty likely to pass, and you just get right back up. And when actions like charging are a double action or whatever, that means that even your up close and personal melee combatants can get up close, get knocked down, get back up again, Chumbawamba style, and charge into something and ruin its day real fast. So they keep your gang running. They keep your activations available to you, which is also pretty huge, which you can get to when we get to weaknesses later. And they just let your guys tank hits at one after another. So even some of the other ones, like I think Unstoppable is one where they can just shake off a flesh wound every turn, if I'm recalling correctly. And they have at least one more that's also pretty solid for that sort of thing. Like their skill table is pretty good from a defensive standpoint, if not necessarily always an offensive one.
It just helps supplement their play style and survivability all in the same thing in a very thematic way, right? So
yeah,
that's great. Do you want to go into a little bit about the strengths and weaknesses of the game?
Yeah. So I already kind of talked about their good stats, especially at the start of a campaign before your other gang is trying to get like good weapons and advancements and abilities and so on. Just having strength and toughness 4 is enormous. Like just your regular schmuck hitting someone with the butt of his rifle at strength 4 is already pretty good early in a campaign. Now, that butt of a rifle isn't always going to be super great. The Goliath weapons available to them range pretty wildly, but they do tend to go more towards the brutal side of things. So we mentioned the Renderizer Serrated Axe, which is one of the gnarliest weapons out there. It's just a big honking axe that hits real hard on a Goliath Forge Champion or Forge Tyrant or whatever, who also hits real hard and has an ability called Pulverize, where you basically get to roll a die every time you get a flesh wound, and you could turn that into a seriously injured result and instantly coup de grace someone. I think they've updated that rule over the course of Necromunda's like life cycle here, because at first I think it automatically applied and now it's on a die roll of some variety, but it is still a fantastic ability that can cause you to do a lot of damage. But the other weapons they can kind of start with, like they have bolt guns as a regular weapon they can just put on a ganger from the get-go. And that's pretty expensive. Like it's like 60 creds or whatever, but it's real powerful. It gives them some long range punch, what they usually lack. And again, it's one of the best guns in the game, just for availability's sake. Like in my old group back out east, they actually like made bolt guns rare because they were getting too prevalent and too powerful. Like again, much like how toughness 4 is garden variety and 40k, bolt guns are too, but in Necromunda, they are as nasty as they are in the fluff.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about the gang is I would say their ranged attacks is not really their forte for the most part. Like you don't want to if you're taking this gang and then you want to make a shooty gang, you've probably done something wrong for the most part. But one of the problems I have, and you and Dan helped me through this a while back, was how do I get these guys into close combat? Because those gangs that have ranged, it's unless you can get close, it's tough, and sometimes it's not easy to get close.
Yeah, like I've routinely run with a boss with a heavy bolter and suspensors, because again, you can just start with that, and suddenly you have a living nightmare on the field, especially with nerves of steel, so he can do his double action, shoot this heavy weapon, and that's great. You can gear towards a shooty gang, but with Goliaths, you kind of need to learn the tricks to, again, let them get there. So grenade launchers are fantastic, and they can take them on their specialists, not because they do damage, but just because they scatter dudes around. Like if you hit a pack of enemies with a frag grenade and just pin them all, suddenly that's a lot less fire coming at you, and it means your Goliaths can advance with impunity. Or you could take whatever the aspirants are, like they used to be called juves, now there's sometimes some other things, but like bully or whatever, you can give them a smoke grenade, and you can have these cheap, low statted gangers run ahead, huck a smoke grenade, and give you some cover to hide behind for a turn or two, which is again going to be pretty huge to actually get your guys into position. But it's also something where, depending on the type of game you're playing, the gang can be an order of magnitude stronger. So if you're playing in like a really heavily three-dimensional space, like a really vertical table, Goliaths are going to have a tough time because they're slow. They want to be up close, like in like that 12-inch range band, and they're going to run circles around. Like if there's someone on the high ground, they're not going to get there. And also because their initiative isn't great, they're going to fall off stuff a lot. Josh, if you'll remember from when we played, you hit one of my dudes with a sniper rifle, didn't even wound him because again, he had that toughness 4, failed my initiative check, fell to his death immediately.
But he lawn darted 7 inches down the, which is like a 35-foot equivalent of just head first into the ground. And
his big stupid metal mohawk just embedded in the ground, just like boom.
This is why lawn darts are illegal here.
It's part of the game.
Yeah. So those like really highly three-dimensional spaces, like Sector Mechanicus type games, can be very challenging for this gang. Now, conversely, Zone Mortalis, especially if you're going like old school with like the 2D tiles or with a fairly limited amount of verticality, they can be a little busted. Like I have played some games that were absolute massacres because when you have a generalist gang with a lot of cheap, like las guns, auto guns, troopers, the kind of cheap bodies that just kind of fill the ranks and kind of do a lot of pinning at range, and they can't get a beat on you because you're hiding around corners or what have you. You're just charging around corners or popping out and plugging a bunch of dudes with a combat shotgun. Again, one of the best weapons in the game, in my opinion, that Goliaths have ready access to. And like the gang is just so much stronger in those Zone Mortalis sort of environments.
It does make sense that they're getting such good access to the equipment for a lot of those kind of iconic 40K weapons, since on Planet of Necromunda, the Goliaths are the ones actually manufacturing all these things.
Right.
So the fact that they can get those just out of the get-go without having to go to the trading post is a huge leg up, even if they're not very good at wielding them.
Well, that's the thing is like their ballistic skill is generally like a 4 across the board. That's strictly average and it doesn't get much better. And they can't get things like plasma guns and sniper rifles really, but a bolt gun's got a +1 when you're in 12 inches. That's pretty all right. I actually kind of going back to the trooper sort of analogy, like your cheap ganger with a las gun or whatever that, again, basically every gang has of some variety. Goliaths don't really get that. The stub cannon is kind of their basic like rifle equivalent, and it's not accurate. It doesn't have any bonus at short range. It hits like a truck if it does hit, but if is the big word there.
You're gambling.
Yeah, you're gambling for honestly not that high returns because again, it's AP nothing. It's only like 1 damage. It's got knockback, which is fun, but it's not that great. And that kind of brings me over to like you're not getting those cheap bodies because I'll go into a weakness here. Goliaths are expensive. You are paying for those good stats. You are paying for that good gear. Generally, like I've run as few as 6 guys in 1,000 credit gang before. Like that, it is a gang that is going to be outnumbered much of the time.
And being outnumbered, you don't think it's a big deal until you are, and then you realize, oh wait, all these guys are still activating, and I'm waiting.
In an alternating activation game, being outnumbered can
exacerbate itself very quickly. You still have 4 activations and I'm done. Okay, it's free for all.
In Warhammer 40K, you talk about in smaller games as you lose units, you become infinitely less effective. I think that's really, really prevalent here with the Goliath. As soon as you lose a guy or a guy is knocked out, you've lost a significant amount of your force at that point.
Yeah, you feel it every single time. There are some tactics cards that let you get some free dudes in there. I'm not going to go into tactics cards too well because I don't remember them all, and there's a lot of them. But there was one I used actually at almost every game at the Adepticon event I played that just gave me like 2 free dudes that just, were cheap, but they're just some bodies to be bullet catchers, or just to clog things up because I was outnumbered in every single game. But when it comes to Ash Wastes, I've only played a few games of it. But they have access to something called a Mauler bike, which is basically a bicep but a motorcycle. It is. I've never tried the grenade launcher version because Twin Linked bolt guns are too good for me to give up. But it is fairly cheap. It is rather fast, and it will hit. I'd say it hits like a truck, but it hits harder than a truck because it has a ram on it. And they are wicked points efficient, and they'll bully other vehicles all over the place. Also, when it comes to Ash Wastes, just a PSA, play with the weather table, because if it's a clear sunny day and people are just sniping each other from across the table, it's not going to be very fun, especially for the Goliath player.
That's interesting. I was going to ask I have not played an Ash Waste game yet, and I'm curious how different it plays than, I know the fundamental rules are the same, but how differently it feels than, say, any of the Underhive.
I mean, I can definitely give some anecdotes again from Adepticon. I played against Matt from Mini Wargaming in my first game. It was a delightful game. He helped me a lot with the actual Ash Wastes, nuts and bolts here. But there was a point straight out of Mad Max where my renderizer champ popped his stim slug stash, which is basically the space steroids that a lot of these Goliaths will take. I recommend taking it on every melee champion you've got because it's a once per game +2 toughness, +2 strength, and they shake off a flesh wound.
Sorry, which one is that again? I need to take a note.
Stim slug stash. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Got it.
But yeah, my champ pops that, revs his renderizer, jumps off a building, lands on top of his Goliath rock grinder, which is it's no relation. Hits it with the axe, causes a boatload of damage, causes the thing to flip over, crash, and explode. And then my Goliath, because he has nerves of steel, high toughness, all the other stuff, lands on his feet, dusts himself off, and is ready for round 2.
Who's next?
Yeah, it was incredible. And that was like, oh, Ash Waste rules. I know this now. But we generally played with a weather table, so there'd be limited visibility or some sort of debuffs to long range shooting, because Goliaths are a slow gang. They are going to struggle if there's a lot of open ground.
Yeah, there's so much. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Necromunda should be played with lob terrain.
Yeah. Yep. And I know Ash Waste specifically with the weather table and the Ash Waste nomads, they actually have the Stormcaller, which they actually get to manipulate the visibility on there, which is a pretty cool ability because they're not particularly tough or survivable, so they really kind of need that cloak of the sandstorms in order to cover them so they can get in where they want to be.
That's my other gang. So good to know. That's my other gang. So
keep taking that, girl.
So you touched a little bit on the stems there. Can you kind of give a example of what these gene enhancements are that you can take, and what are these?
So there's a whole bunch. Every gang's got some gimmick. For Eschers, it's mixing the drugs to shoot a guy with a needle and get him addicted to space meth or whatever.
How very Dark Eldar.
But here it's all what kind of steroid cocktails you got that went into making the Goliaths or so on. So the Stim Slug stash is just kind of a general piece of war gear they all got. And there's also a combat drug that Stimmers and Zerkers have just kind of built into their profile, where you roll a die, you might get more attacks, you might lose some attacks, whatever. It's all cool. It's pretty easy to kind of memorize. But you mentioned early on, there's Vatborn and Natborn. There are these and Unborn. So there's all these different tables that you can kind of go into when you create your gang, and you can do gene smithing. And this lets you figure out a whole bunch of buffs and debuffs with associated points, costs, or credits. And you can really, really tweak your gang how you want here. And there are so many dang options. There's 3 double page spreads of these things. And they kind of all cater to something different. So, I think there's The Natborn caters more towards like intelligence and willpower, and like as opposed to cool, while Unborn goes more for skills and so on. So you can kind of really adjust the gang to play to your particular play style, which is really cool, but also can be very intimidating. Like there's a lot to go through.
Yeah.
Because Necromunda is already a game with a lot of, there's a lot to think about when you build your gang to begin with, and suddenly adding this whole other layer to it can make things more complex.
Yeah, I think that's why I haven't used them so far. And until we started doing the show, we were talking earlier about Natborn, Vatborn, all that. But until doing this show, like I didn't even realize this was a section. I really went kind of deeper than I'd ever gone with Goliath before. I'd bought the House of Chains book, but I hadn't gone and read the whole thing. And I did in preparation for this. And you're right, it can be overwhelming. I mean, I think advice I would give is start without some of that. Ease yourself into it, much like you would with Warhammer 40,000. You're not pulling out all the stops of every army right away.
Right.
You're learning the basics, and then you're adding layer upon layer. But not only is that very, very cool from a rules perspective, like how thematic is it that you're literally in there like a cocktail, mixing your guys and mixing the drugs that they're going to use. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
No, when we're done here, I'm going to go convert my Goliath mixologist.
Nice.
And make sure he's got a nice wig wax mustache on there. He's going to be insufferable. Half of them already have suspenders anyway. But it is really cool, because Goliaths are gene forged, vat grown. Like they are a cloned, grown sort of servant class in Necromunda. So again, it's not a place you want to live, but it does mean you can really customize them. And I would say that when you do get around to using those rules, or if you do, you don't have to. I would just take it one at a time. Like, okay, I'm gonna play in a game this week. I'm gonna put together a gang with like, all right, my boss is gonna take the +1 toughness upgrade, and my champ is gonna take the +1 wound upgrade. I'm not gonna think too hard, because thinking too hard is very un-Goliath. I don't recommend it.
Embrace it. I think it's worth noting too that there are limitations for how many upgrades you can take based upon the type of model. So I think the Forgeborn leaders can take 2 upgrades, but pretty much everybody else, and maybe champions and leaders get 2, and everybody else can have 1. So it does top out there. Yeah. So it doesn't, like, you can't go crazy with it, but it's super thematic at the same time.
Yeah, you're not going to go hog wild here, but it's a very cool new dimension to the game. And this is also where I need to remind you that Necromunda is not strictly balanced. That's kind of by design. It's maybe not by design, but it's not super balanced. So just kind of use your best into it.
That's what Adon loves about this game, right, Josh?
Man. Noted Necromunda 2017 fan and dry fit enthusiast, Adon. Yeah.
and repacker extraordinaire. Listen, Campbell, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate your expertise, and we love the 40K Badcast as well. We're all fans of it. So, I consider it a great honor that you and I have become friends over the years. And I just want to thank you for your time. Is there anything you should add that we haven't covered?
Well, first off, I was just going to say thanks for having me back on the show. I'm glad y'all are back.
We're glad we're back too.
Glad to be
happy
back
to be here
with my ham dad.
We already referenced that earlier.
It's just a snake eating its own tail. It's recursive.
I do have one more question.
Oh yeah, shoot.
Sump Croc, yes or no?
Yes. Old Sumpy. I love Old Sumpy. I love that old girl. Yeah, I don't know how great it is. The pets are kind of their own little system, but like, they're making pets. They're fun. They're good models.
You gotta take it.
It chomps.
It's a Trish Morrison classic. Like, it's a great model. I love that model.
I was looking at some photos of a game you and I played a while back, Carl. Is that the precinct assault scenario that I ran?
I was looking at that as well.
It was Duchess, your Sump Croc. Great name for a Sump Croc, by the way. Eating my enforcer's Cyber Mastiff. And I was yes. That's right.
That's the food chain, man.
Yeah, it was a great game. I have a bunch of pictures of that I'll make available too.
Awesome. But yeah, other than that, I'm just thrilled to be here. Glad y'all are back. You mentioned the 40K Badcast. That's the other show. That's the show I do. And I've been doing it for 6 years now. We talk a lot about Necromunda over there, me and my buddy Dan. So give us a listen and make sure the kids are out of the room when you do.
Yeah, I couldn't recommend it highly enough, though. It's really, really a pleasure. And that being said, the next time we do one of these Underhive deep dives here, hopefully you'll come back.
I'd love to. And honestly, if not me, my co-host Dan, he frankly knows a lot more.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about Dan.
That's fine. Yeah.
We'll bring him on for the Orlux. He's got a cosplay for it.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yes.
I would have cosplayed for this one, but I want to keep my shirt on for the viewers at home.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Campbell. We appreciate it.
Of course.
Well, listen, it's very dangerous in the Underhive. I want to thank Campbell for putting his life at risk.
As it turns out, not a fun place to be. So we appreciate you, bro.
Such a little guy too, hanging out with all those Goliaths.
Your ham dad's proud of you. Proud of you, son. All right. There is in the Show Force episodes, we would typically talk about here's all these Black Library books that feature this chapter or this type of race or what have you. Again, this is a much smaller line, but that being said, there are some significant Black Library inclusions around Necromunda. In fact, there's a whole Necromunda line of books. The first is this book called Spark of Revolution by Gary Kloster. And this is the summary is a civil war racks the House of Chains, and Goliath fights Goliath for the Ogren Breaker Brass. This is an opportunity to free himself from slavery and forge his own destiny in the Underhive. Right there. Like, I'm in. Yep. Totally a Goliath book. Sounds perfectly interesting. To me, I'm going to buy that one. Underhive. This is a collection of short stories. I've already picked this up, and this is great. There's a couple that touch on Goliath within that. Terminal Overkill is the one I'm reading right now that I actually was talking about the person falling into the vat of growth stuff and then
fantastic
Tetsuoing out.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's by Justin Hill. And the summary here: when a full-scale gang war erupts between houses Goliath and Escher, Brielle of the Wild Hydras finds herself on the run and desperate for revenge. Goliath playing kind of the heels in this particular story. And then The Last Voyage of Alyssa Harrow by Denny Flowers. And I just mentioned this because there's some croc on the cover. Some croc, baby.
Every time, yeah, some croc's mentioned. Take a shot.
That book you can judge by its cover.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, again, what's interesting is when I first got into 40K, like I was reading every 40K book I could find out there. I read them all, and I had avoided the Gaunt's Ghost series. I think I might have talked about this last
episode. Yeah.
Yeah. But what was funny was like I could get to the end of like, there's nothing else for me to read. I've read the Soul Drinkers, omnibus. I've read this omnibus, this one. There's nothing left to read. Now it's like, there is no way. Yeah. There is no way you can read the massive amount of material that Black Library has put out. We are truly lucky to
I've already
be
got
in a
my
situation.
retirement years planned out.
Oh,
just reading Black Library books. Yeah.
It's incredible. So, and while we're talking about Black Library books, I just have to make a quick pitch for something totally non-40K related, because I've gotten Ed Brown and John French into this series, and there's a series on Audible. You can actually buy the books, but trust me, go the Audible route for these because the reader is phenomenal and does like multitude of voices. But there's a series called Dungeon Crawler Carl. And it is I heard that's what I said. I had to buy it because of the name. I listened to it. Carl. Then I listened to book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5. And John French and Ed are now like, oh my God, I can't stop listening to this. It's like
right up dungeon.
It's like the greatest thing ever. It is such a dumb premise. It's like aliens come to Earth, flatten everything on the planet, but build a dungeon underneath the world. And this guy, Carl, happened to be like outside, so he didn't get smashed with everything, goes into this dungeon along with his ex-girlfriend's cat named Donut. And the cat like gains sentience and can talk. And you're like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And trust me, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
It's wildly entertaining.
But my God, it is the best series ever. Like I support the guy through Patreon. I cannot wait for the next thing to come out.
I'll check it out.
It is some of the fun, like laugh out loud funny stuff in it. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Right.
I'm going to put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay. Not Black Library, but my God, they should get this guy to write Black Library stuff. Okay. So anyway, moving on. Supporting supplements for this. Again, there's not a huge range of stuff. You know, it's funny. I saw somebody make a post recently that said, I got in Necromunda because somebody said it would be cheaper than 40K. And then they showed like all the Necromunda books.
Then you get all the specialist games books.
Oh my God. And they're beautiful. Like these are great books.
Yeah.
You're going to spend some money though. But for Goliath in particular, you have obviously the core books, but then you have the Ash Waste, which adds Goliath to Ash Waste.
Yep.
You have the Aranthian Succession, Cinderak Burning. And this first one focuses more on Goliath than the subsequent one, which is the Aranthian Succession, the Vaults of Temenos.
Yeah, that's actually an expansion of the lore. It's progressing the timeline of Necromunda, but the first one, I believe, is what actually introduced the Goliath Maulers, the vehicles for Ash Waste.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. And then next we have Forge World support for this. Now, GW has gone through a lot of changes. Forge World is not quite what it used to be. Now it's more like special. I think they don't even. I think they're more focused now. Specialist games is what they're really calling themselves for the most
Seems
part.
like they're in a weird state right now.
They're in a state of flux, and so they're really focused on boxed games.
And a lot of their units are being like discontinued in
Yes, yeah.
But a lot of those are coming out as plastic.
mostly
now.
competitive play.
Yeah,
or
some are coming out-
Legends or whatever.
Yes,
but
they're moving to Legends. That's a whole story for a whole nother thing.
I know.
Save it for 10th.
Yeah, but and listen, you know, when you run a business and you have a lot of SKUs, it becomes problematic when things aren't moving. Blah blah blah. Whatever.
Right.
Whatever. Whatever. Okay, so Forge World
Sorry
support.
to derail.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. It's a valid topic. That's gonna throw us off here.
Yeah.
But for Necromunda, it kind of originates from the specialist games line, which is really Forge World, or what Forge World was.
Right.
And so it makes sense that there's a lot of support from Forge World. For example, we talked about some of these already, but Ajax Gorgoth, the Lord of the Fist, who's also a hired gun. And you'll see that a lot of these are.
Yeah, he's one of the alphas. So there's a lot of the big name personalities brought to life in amazing models that
And they keep adding to them.
They keep adding to like 4 of these just released in the last handful of months, like this year, and those models are amazing.
Yeah,
definitely worth checking out.
The Goliath Ash Waste upgrades, we talked about those already. So kind of bringing, you want Goliath, but they live out in the Ash Waste.
Yeah,
these can add some
theme
character
them that way.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, Goliath Champion with Renderizer.
Yes,
This is
you
awesome.
gotta have it.
Durgan Killfist, the Outlaw Bounty Hunter.
Yep.
Axe and Hammer, the Outlaw Goliath House Agent. The Goliath Sumpcroc.
The Zerker, of course.
Yep.
Which we've talked about.
Yep. Gorshiv Hammerfist, the Bounty Hunter. And this is an important one, and they've done this for many of them, is the Goliath Heads upgrade set. And this is just great because you're surprised at how much difference just the head swaps make on these guys.
Well, it's the focal point of the model.
Right. And so that's a good point. So you have you can buy one pack of these things and
You're good for a game.
You're totally good. You're totally good, but it'll just add that one little piece of uniqueness to whichever model you've combined that head with. So
there are weapons kits too. They've also since the original resin weapons kits were made by Forge World, they have released GW Prime has put out a plastic weapon kit, which just supplements more of the options you can find in.
And it's so helpful.
In the Underhive,
which so helpful.
Gives a lot more length to those the base kit.
Do you magnetize any of your minis, or
I have
you just plastic
every option
glue
you can
them
get.
together?
It's 25 models. I'm like, I'll just build it.
Yeah. I mean, you could go through the process of magnetizing
some weapons
some
would
of
obviously
it.
be easier than others.
Yeah, what's interesting. Speaking of that, like I backed a Kickstarter for some like D&D minis that were, your character evolves. So like they would sell you all the packs of weapons that came with the character and the tiny magnets that go on with. By the way, I didn't know you can clip magnets in half when they're that thin. You can actually cut them pretty easily. so I was showing Travis and those guys like these models where these tiny magnets they're designed to like, oh, now he's holding a staff, now he's holding a wand, or now he's holding a torch, or whatever. But it's designed specifically for that, which makes it a whole lot easier. These guys are not really designed for it. Like switching between this, the pistols, I'm sure you could find a way to clip them in such a way that it worked. But
just the hassle versus just buy another box and just do the thing.
I mean, as much
if
as
you want every option, you're in for 20 models, and
right,
that'll cover all the bases you really ever need.
And that's probably a couple $100 by that point, right?
Well, more of the books, the boxes, the models are
what they're like
$50,
$60 a gang, something like that.
Yeah, 50, 60
US.
bucks. So you need 2 of those plus you're gonna be in a couple $100. But then that's it.
It's also worth stating
until they release the new one.
For if you just want to play a base gang, 1 box is all you need. Like
this is very true,
and you are able to play the game.
The new Delac, and
that's all you need
from there.
That's all you need, and then you can decide. Well, I want to represent this guy?
If you get into a campaign and your guy gets a bionic arm or whatever, like okay, I'm going to buy another box, and I want to model this guy now, or like I got this weapon in the trading post and things like that.
I seem to remember back in the day when we were playing, like you get an upgrade, and like next time we would meet up, I had to like clip something off, and
that was the old school,
or like even like he took a wound and we would like paint like little scars or whatever. We were kids with nothing but time.
Yeah.
All right. So this game specifically, though, like what makes it fun, what makes it unique from my perspective, like I could have picked any gang out there, and actually I kind of landed. To be fair, I kind of landed on Goliath because it was one of the gangs that came with the base set, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Okay, I'll play this gang. And then next thing you know, I was like, I really kind of dig these guys. I lucked out in that case. Like, I like the way they play. My first 40K army was Space Marines, as many people. It wasn't until I played Chaos that I'm like, I really don't like the way Space Marines play. I really enjoy these aspects. I got lucky in this case. Like, I landed at the right army for me. Now I'm kind of interested in some of the others just to see how and it's so doable based on the size of.
You've already got the books, so now you just need a couple boxes.
Yeah. So, for me in close combat, they are devastating. Like they are super fun. Like once you get them into close combat, they really tear it up. And I also really
they speak to the lore.
Yeah,
when you're playing with them.
Do,
without a doubt. I think all the armies play very well to the lore.
Gangs. Gangs.
Freaking heck yeah.
Yeah.
Gangs,
but apparently Goliath are basically an army now. They're taking over.
They're going to have their own planet.
Yeah, there you go.
They're just playing the waiting game.
All right. And they're lifting the weights. So I really also enjoy the use of heavy weapons and range combat and that kind of thing. And so they have some opportunities there to fire some they're terrible at it, but but really the trick is getting them into that close combat. And that's where I reach out to Campbell and Dan. I'm like, how do I get them in? Oh, throw smoke grenades,
No drop pods? Damn it.
So yeah, I think it's a super fun army to play, or gang to play for that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Any other thoughts there? No, that's.
Yeah. Well, for me, they are the orcs of Necromunda.
Okay. That's insulting, and now I'm gonna have to roid crush your head.
So they're the orcs of Necromunda, but less intelligent.
Oh,
but still cunning. They're still cunning.
Oh my God!
Cunning.
I'm gonna come
Cunning,
across this
but
table.
brutal.
Cunning.
Yeah. So they, the bigger, the better, the stronger, the leader. Like they have that same hierarchy. They just want to just run forward and get into combat. The beautiful thing about them is that you can get that orky fun vibe of just running, charging into combat. But as we've just discussed, you need 10 to 20 models instead of painting 300 green orcs for your green tide. Like you get that kind of feel. It checks a lot of those same boxes. They're terrible at shooting. They're great in combat. They're super tough. They're actually tough. Is 4 almost across the board.
They're fairly survivable in that regard.
Makes them, that's a big deal in Necromunda, which most gangs are toughness 3 and most weapons are strength 3.
Yeah.
So T4 is a big deal. It adds a lot to survivability. And they're just super fun, very straightforward to how they want to play. They just want to run forward and get in that fight. So hard to go wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Justin?
Basically what you guys just said, but I just love the Mad Max vibes from this whole gang. And the simplicity of just rush forward, crush skulls.
Sometimes that's nice. I would say it's like turning your brain off, but it's not. Like this game,
Yeah.
there's a lot of thought
Every
that goes
piece
into
still-
just rushing forward.
Right.
Yeah. But they just seem like just a fun experience.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is, as you were talking about the Zerker, they're fun to fight against too.
Yeah. They're fun on both sides of the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to move away from this for just a minute. We're going to come back and then we're going to close out the show. What do you think about that?
I think
Deal.
that's a great idea.
All right. All right, we're back, and it's time to close out the show on our first
Show
episode
of
in this
force.
series.
Show of gangs.
No, it's I should have called it Show of Gangs. That would have been good. Instead, I called it Underhive Factions. I don't know.
That's way better.
Probably better than Show of Gangs. Yeah. So we've got a few final message here. You guys got any final thoughts you want to throw out there?
Play Necromunda. It's awesome. It's worth it.
I want to play Necromunda now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just honestly, I'm just really humbled, and there's already been a ton of people from the IC podcast community that have donated to my terrible situation, and I can't thank you guys and gals enough. Carl, thank you so much for posting that on the community.
Dude, we love you, man. Right? And
I love you too, brother.
you're a great friend. Shell and I were actually just talking about, like, Justin's a pretty great house guest. Like, he's been helpful, and we're
the
happy
least
to
I
have
can
you
do,
and your
man.
kid here, man.
Yeah.
But
So,
now
yeah.
get out.
Yeah. 2 days, man. I'm out.
It's fine. If you need,
And much
And let
love
us
to
know if
you
you
and
need to
Shell
come back.
for let me in. I knocked on your door at 5:30 in the
Yep.
morning or something.
Totally
I'm like,
fine.
hey, dude,
can I sleep here? Yes,
you
you
got
can.
a couch?
Yes, you can.
So-
No, we have a guest room.
Yeah.
So yeah, listen again. Peace and love.
Mm-hmm.
We love you, Doug. We love you, Justin. Love you, Josh. We're all
So
we're
much
all-
love. Can you feel the
Can
love?
you feel it? Can you feel it? Right. So yeah, I mean,
If we weren't lounging
my
on
final
couches.
thoughts would be, make sure your smoke detectors are working.
Yes.
Yeah.
After your situation, we went around and checked all of ours.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. So, yeah. Anyway, please do, if you're listening to us through iTunes, leave us a review on iTunes. We have a Facebook community, as you may know.
And keep the love on that going.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
my
so good.
God.
It's really- Take it
Oh,
off.
man. I wish I had thought, because last episode we did the whole rare things of 40K. And next thing I know, people are posting, oh, look at what I got. And I was like, oh, we should have. I wish I'd thought to start a thread that
Yeah.
was like, share what you've got. And,
Yeah.
we're not that smart.
But just, yeah, like you
I'm
guys
that
mentioned
born.
last episode. I'm unborn. But just seeing, like, after the show started back up, like, to piggyback off what you guys said last episode, just seeing, like, the community is so invigorated.
I love
and
this
there's
community
so much
much.
cool stuff being posted.
Yeah,
like,
it's great.
keep it coming,
Yeah,
everybody.
It's great. Love it. Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Show coming back, 10th edition being right around the corner. Like that's a really exciting time to
we
be
are
a part of the
so-
community. So
I'm so excited about 10th Ed.
Mhm.
So excited. And Shell was like, let's have a game day at the house. Like,
Yes,
she's like
let's do
super into it. So
Yeah.
right on.
that's awesome.
We are going to be launching our Patreon again in the very near future, probably towards the end of this month. I had actually wanted to do it towards the middle of this month, but as it turns out, I'm a little bit behind. And I'm also flying out to Montreal Wednesday, which I think is the release date of this this episode. I'm flying out to Montreal to go to Formula One race, so I'll be out for that whole weekend.
Yeah.
But once I come back, we'll get organized. We'll do it. And we have an awesome YouTube channel going on, thanks to the wonderful Josh.
Absolutely.
man.
Yeah. We're on YouTube. So same.
And
great,
we've got a much bigger green screen.
the people have asked and we have answered.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Our
It's so
screen
green
is
and
now
it's so
4
bright.
times the size of the previous screen.
It is.
And it's even greener. So
It is 4 times the size now.
is, yeah.
Think about it, like,
yeah. So we
tried
won't
to
plug
paint
it
it
every
green.
show for the things, but stuff like this show that we talked about, the art in the books, things like that. Like if you are watching the YouTube channel, like we will definitely have some of those visuals up on the screen there, so you can just see what we're talking about. Elite choices up on the screen, models we're talking about up on the screen, things like that. So it's a cool way to visually.
we've been stoked at the feedback we've been getting
Yeah,
from it.
it's-
And we're just trying to make it better. Like we're kind of new to this long
long format
long
recording
format.
is definitely different from what
We've
I've
run
done,
into a
so,
few technical issues in there. We're working through each of those. We're just going to get better at this.
It'll
And
just keep getting better.
we've got some other ideas of stuff we want to do. So
it'll be fun. There'll be full episodes there, but there'll also be some fun bonus video specific things.
Yeah. So would that close out? All right.
I think so.
This is Carl.
This is Josh.
And this is Justin.
And we're coming to you from the Astronomicon, where the light of the Astronomicon hasn't reached the Underhive until now.
Mm.
And strength is everything.
And what doesn't kill you needs to try harder.
What doesn't kill you needs to try harder. I love it.
Love it.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys over this evening. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys, and we appreciate you, listeners. So,
Yes.
Hang tight. In a couple weeks, we'll be back with episode 218. We've got some interesting ideas there, too. This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.